Cybertron. This is the show where they talk about stuff on TV. Welcome, Andre Human.
Well, greetings, Optimus.
I hope my manliness is not bothering you too much.
No, I'm fine for the moment, but we'll see how long the moment lasts.
They said I was too manly in the new movie, so I had to calm it down a bit. Also joining us are two Canadian humans. I don't know what's wrong with them.
Human might be too strong a word.
Are you an alien, Chato human being?
Yes, I have been told many times. I'm an alien. I have been told by many people. They've said, Paul, you're just not well.
What planet are you from? That's a question that's frequent.
That's funny.
Many times at LA City Hall, I'd be called an alien.
Yeah, well, you are in that case.
Yeah.
Speaking of wells, I'm used to people going back to the well for my.
We're not wetbacks, we're frozen backs.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Paul Chato.
Icebacks, yeah.
Earthling script doctor.
I have an ice back on my head. Never mind. Oh, that was bad. That was a really bad stretch.
You're not eating right now, so I guess you just need to feel
No,
up.
I finished.
You finished?
my bagel and avocado. Is that taco bagel?
Yeah, I was testing my noise. Everybody
Bagel
says I'm
Bell.
quiet.
Bagel Bell. You are hot this morning, Script. So introduce Script. He deserves it. Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah. Well, welcome, Script Doctor. And we're here, and Andre saw Transformers.
I did indeed. We'll talk a bit about that today and a few other things.
All right. So I'm eating cookie, and I'm enjoying it. So welcome everybody to the program. Since Andre had such a short intro there, after I just said you just saw Transformers. Speaking of, Callum Lyle is already bringing it up.
Yeah, Callum Lyle says for $5, Transformers. I had fun. Wasn't the best, but okay. Tom will buskill as usual. Well, he would if you had seen it. I don't think you have you?
Nope, I don't have a vehicle.
Yeah, exactly. You need a Transformer of your own.
Yeah, it'd be nice if I had Bumblebee.
Yeah, but at least it wasn't a dumbass Marvel movie. Did anyone else see Transformers over the last 24 hours, I guess?
I have not.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I'll just give my very brief, spoiler-free verdict.
Yes.
If anyone has any specific questions, we'll address those. What I will say about this Transformers movie, first thing about continuity. I was surprised to learn on Wednesday, in Wednesday's stream, that this was a different continuity from the Bay movies, but it absolutely is. I now see that Bumblebee started out as a prequel to the Michael Bay movies, but between this movie and Bumblebee, they did something fun. They retroactively made Bumblebee a reboot. And this movie right here, Transformers: The Rise of the Beasts, or whatever it's called, I don't remember right now, is the sequel to it. So it is not a prequel to the Bay movies, but the sequel to Bumblebee. And it sets off a whole new continuity and a whole new timeline going forward. So this movie right here tries to be the Iron Man of the MCU, kickstarting for real the Hasbro cinematic universe. Is very, very clear by this movie here. So that's one thing. How good is it? It's entertaining. It's light fun, but I do feel it could have used one more rewrite, because there's like a lot of things here which really work, but they don't really knock it out of the park. And they could have with a little bit more work in the writing. Now, the thing you all want to know, because no review can be complete without it, is how woke is it? It's a little bit woke. It's not too bad, but in the first 20 minutes, you'll be forgiven for thinking that the real enemy of the people is all white, or enemy of the movie is all white people everywhere, because every
You mean they're not?
No, they still might be. They still might be. It all might be. Probably the whole thing is with Unicron, who shows up later and everything. Spoiler alert, I guess. Is probably all like a metaphor for white people in some sense, I guess. So probably white people are the real villain of the movie. Of course, I'd like to. No, I don't really like to watch it again, but just to like look for subtextual messages and stuff like that. But it's set very, very early on that white people will take advantage of colored people to get ahead, and they'll screw colored people over any chance they get. These are like the two interactions we have with white people. So you do have that there. Other than that, the movie is fine. It's entertaining. The Transformers, they look good. You can tell which is in a fight. Optimus Prime, he's a little bit like this broken and angry Optimus Prime from the final Michael Bay movie. And other than that, it's overall pretty entertaining. I would rate it number 3 of all of the Transformers movies released so far, regardless of continuity. The best one being Bumblebee, second one being the original from 2007. By original, I mean the original live-action Bay film. And of course, after those two, there's a pretty steep drop in quality. But then this movie is in the number 3 spot, with all the others that just kind of like blend together coming in after that. So that's my brief verdict of Transformer Rise of the Beast. An entertaining movie all in all. Simple, light fun, not going to challenge you in any way, and mostly harmless. Mostly.
Well, I heard that the most wokest thing in the movie was Optimus Pride, and him going,
does this dress make my hips look big?
All in the service of Pride Month, but yeah.
Yes, Optimus Pride.
Yeah, no, I didn't really see anything of that in there.
All right, well, that's too bad. I was hoping the movie would be pretty good considering, but it only did 8.8 million last night, and that's with its Wednesday previews. So it's looking at only making about $50 to $60 million this weekend, which is not good.
No, that's a pretty big letdown. But that only tells me that they need to adjust the budget of these movies to adjust for the fact that these are no longer billion-dollar properties. They were at one point, but they blew it. The audience were lost, and they're not coming back again. And the Bumblebee level may very well be the new baseline where audience interest is concerned.
Well, somebody must have got to know it, because this one was a lot cheaper than the last ones, or at least a lot cheaper than most movies out there right now. I had the budget here last night. What was it? It was under 200 million.
Well, with that and international, it may stand a chance then.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's kind of like what I think they need to do. They need to adjust the budget and see that Bumblebee may not have been the fluke. That's the new baseline. Budget for that baseline. And
well, it's listed at 200. So, I mean, I'm sure if it was under that plus add in everything, yeah. Yeah, they got a chance with the outside the U.S., but I don't know about
inside. Because then we are talking a total negative cost of for between. Yeah, it's going to have to total negative cost then of between 300 and 400 million. So it's going to need to make between around 600 million to break even.
Yeah,
seems like a tall order, but should be achievable.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I'm sure other things will come up about Transformers like this one. Cal Mile says, and it didn't have Michael Bay's signature racial stereotypes as a screaming black guy, Victoria's Secret, and really bad sense of humor. You get it.
No, it didn't have those, but instead what it had was the message that all white people are evil. That it replaced it with that. And as Cal says, yeah, it's not a prequel. No, indeed. This is the sequel to Bumblebee, and Bumblebee starts a brand new continuity and a cinematic universe, without me spoiling it any more than that.
It's not a sequel. It's not a prequel. It's an equal. 10 points to anybody who can figure out what trailer that was from.
Or equitable, maybe more accurate in this case.
Hyperguyber 2 says, why did we make us look at Fleabag while we wait?
For fun.
Because Andre hasn't figured out how to do trailers yet. When he does figure it out, then I'm sure we'll have other things for you to look at.
Yeah, then we'd have Fleabag in live motion, or in live action.
You could have her singing my song.
Yeah, wondering about like the size of her ass, like he did in the opening episode of Fleabag. Roll that clip.
Everything I wear looks like shit on me, and it makes my butt look really big.
She could sing that song. We have a new guest joining us. He hasn't been on in a little while, but we're glad to have him back. Mr. Valiant Renegade.
Oh, good morning, gentlemen.
Yes, I wrote him a theme song.
Glad to have you here.
Yeah, I'm glad I was able to get in here for a little bit today. A rare kind of quiet moment here. Probably got maybe about an hour or so, but
fantastic.
Yeah, I saw Transformers last night with Renegade Jr. and just real quickly.
Let's hear it. So, like, both your verdict on the movie and its opening in the box office.
Well, first off, Renegade Jr., he really liked it. Of course, he's a big Transformers nut, and he's got tons of the toys. And at the end of the day, look, this is why Hasbro and their E1 Studios partner with Paramount to make these films. This is about selling toys. It's not like most other movies where, you know, you have a movie and you try to have merchandise sales from it. This originates from merchandise, and they make movies as advertisements that they get the audience to pay for to go buy more toys. Actually, I did a video on it the other day, and it was amazing to go back and look at the history of it. What Brian Goldner had done with Hasbro over the 20 years he was there until the end of 2021, when he tragically passed away at the age of 58 from prostate cancer. I mean, he converted Hasbro into what it is now. And Transformers effectively was selling about $30 million a year of merchandise and licensing in 2000. By the time the second movie had come out in 2009, they were clipping at about $600 million a year in sales. So a 2,000% increase. That is why they make these films. So to some extent, the box office at the end of the day, provided that it's still pushing merchandise sales, kind of doesn't matter. That's what it's all about for them, I think, at this point. But that being said, as far as the movie goes, I 100% agree with everything Andre just said at the open of the show. So that's the kind of the brief rundown. I think you already said it, and I would tend to agree with it.
In other words, my review is going to be reflective of what a lot of people are going to think. There's a bit of wokeness, but it's not too bad compared to what it could have been. There's some stupidity that should have been removed in a rewrite, could have been done very easily, and overall an entertaining ride.
Yeah, and like you said, I thought the first 20 minutes of the movie, you had the first 5 minutes where we got Transformers action, and then the next 20 minutes was introducing the two main human characters in the movie, which you just kind of, like Andre said, you go, okay. Yeah, and then you move on with the movie. I wasn't a big fan of, I thought the actors' performances were just kind of flat. It was a pancake for me, but look, it's one of those things, like Tom says, it's a big action monster movie. Just give me monsters fighting. In this case, just give me robots fighting.
Yeah, I will say none of the human leads really set the house on fire. Let's just put it that way.
No.
Well, maybe the movie would be better if they did.
Well, I would just say, and again, without spoilers,
starting a fire.
Yeah, without any spoilers, real quick, I think the best moment in the film was at the end, and it's not a secret that Michael Kelly was involved in the film. Was his scene in the post-credit scene was like, oh boy, and I'll leave it there.
That surprised me, and I was thinking, well, that's pretty cool. I wish that the script would have gotten that one more extra rewrite, so that this really could have fired on all cylinders and been something special. Because Hasbro, they can do something special here if they just play their cards right, and of course also adjust their budget to the baseline of Bumblebee. How do you think the movie is going to fare financially? But before you answer that, a tipping bond says, Andre, did you watch a compromised Cybertronian dub? No, this time I did not accidentally walk into the Norwegian dub of the
Pork,
movie.
pork,
like
pork, 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 pork. Hurdy-gurdy birdie.
Exactly, like I did with Spider-Verse, because there I was in a rush, so I just walked into the wrong screening. I was like, oh shit, they speak Norwegian. So yeah. But this one is easy because we don't dub our live action movies, only animated movies. And this one was barely accepted as live action, so no dubbing for it. So yeah, no issues with that. But yeah, of course, it's very, very early days yet. But based on the response that you have seen, what we know of the budget and Thursday's numbers, what do you think make of this movie's prospect so far? Again, with the massive hedge that is still very early days.
Yeah, indeed. Transformers is one of those kind of funny movies. It's like the Fast and the Furious franchise, right? Where it's very heavily reliant upon overseas markets. And more specifically, they have, at least in more recent years or more recent entries to the franchise, have become more heavily reliant upon particularly the Asia-Pacific Rim, right? Talking about Hong Kong and Taiwan and Korea and China and Japan, places like that. So we really need to see how it's going to play over there. I mean, it's a movie that's going to need around, if we want to go for just a pure break even, it's going to need somewhere around 600 million or so globally.
Yeah, that's what I said. Between 5 and 600 million seems like
And I think if they get within range of that, which is, I think, perfectly feasible at this point, again, given the history of the good overseas performance, I think they'll be fine again, because it's going to drive a metric ton of new toy sales. And that's what Hasbro ultimately is after with these things. So, I mean, short of it completely bombing and then Hasbro losing a couple $100 million and Paramount in tandem with them losing a couple $100 million, I mean, that would be a mess, right? But I think as long as they get within that break-even range within reason, that's why they're making these films. Obviously, they'd love to have gangbusters performance. They'd love to go back to having, $1 billion a film like they did for a couple of films there, in the last 10 years. But settling in around 700 million or so on average over the course of the whole franchise, I think if they can reach that, they'll be fine. I don't know if it's going to get there. We have to wait to see what the international box office looks like, and we probably won't have a good idea of that until Sunday morning.
Michael Bay did save a lot of money on some of his Transformer movies. There are segments that he actually cribbed from his previous movies. Whole car chases and things like that where, well, that was actually in another Michael Bay movie. And then he just, he used it as clip movies.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he saved money that way.
Yeah. So we'll just see where this goes. My concern is the overseas performance, I think, if anything affects it.
Yeah, that's the big deal.
Yeah, some people are going to maybe think this sounds shallow, but look, I think there's a reason why all the Transformers movies, at least for the first 5 or 6 of them, whatever, he always had a really hot girl in there as a lead. Okay, that plays well overseas.
Yeah, of course.
And we don't have that in this one.
Quite the contrary. I can tell you this right away, that there are some markets out there where the lead actress in this movie is not going to play well. I mean, no offense to her as an actress, but like you remember Tom, like like the brand new version of April O'Neil, right?
Liz O'Neill.
Yep.
Yeah, she kind of looks like the live action version of that. And
that's exactly what I thought, Andre. And what really highlighted that was because
for yourself. In the film, I felt pretty, oh so pretty.
The TMNT trailer ran right before this movie started. With it, you had the new Seth Rogen version of April O'Neil, and then the movie starts, and then you get this actress, and all I could think about the whole time was, this is like live action Seth Rogen, April O'Neil.
Yes, exactly. And we are supposed to believe that this is the smartest person in the room.
Yeah, that did not come off.
Yeah, I did not. I'm very sorry, but I did not buy this person as this super duper archaeologist that's able to figured out absolutely everything in a second, and of course is dismissed completely by her white boss that steals all her discoveries later on. That's
That was very ham-fisted the way they did it.
Extremely. Again, that's kind of like the messaging. So they made a point out of how both leads are screwed over by the white man and the white woman.
Which will always bring a very that'll bring audiences in. That's always a good that's always a good tactic. So, you know, what I find with the April O'Neil and the Seth Rogen trailer of TMN and then the trailer for this is it's not that what they've done is bad. What they've done is neutralize the character from the perspective of adding bums in seats. So looking at this as an executive, back in the day when I would literally be brought into a senior executive's office and they would put a videotape in of a bunch of actresses for an upcoming show. And his question was, do you think she's fuckable? and that would be the question. And even the lesbian head of casting knew what that meant and was not insulted. So what you've got is a situation where, and I don't blame the actor, actress either. The point is, when you are creating an entertainment product, you're moving chess pieces, and you are trying to make sure that every piece is going to add to the total.
Yes.
What's happened with the April O'Neil, which doesn't bug me one way or the other, but Megan Fox in that live action Mutant Ninja Turtles was a good reason to go see the movie. There's no reason to see the movie the Seth Rogen's April O'Neil. I don't care about her. The woman who they had in the trailer for this Transformers Beast thing, she doesn't add anything to the movie. Like, there's no reason.
I would go so far as to say that both human leads actually subtracted from the movie.
Right. So,
I agree.
Okay. So it's okay. So that's a different issue. So, for instance, you know, we're not concerned about color. If, you know, Will Smith at the height of his powers probably would have done a killer job as the kid in this movie. It's a talent issue.
Mm-hmm.
They're just not finding people that I want to see, even if they do the swap. Like, for instance, or Blood Origin, they had that British woman, the person of color, as the lead. I honestly didn't care, but she was horrible. So, you know, why can't they solve this race swapping problem by finding finding a Halle Berry or something? At least make the women attractive. Don't make them of color and homely. Don't do it. Don't do two things at the same time. It's like trying to quit heroin and smoking. Pick one. Like, you just can't do both at the same time.
Just be glad they didn't put her in a wheelchair. Because as you may recall from Across the Spider-Verse, there actually was a wheelchair-bound Spider-Man.
Yep, that's correct.
That's not how the Force works.
Thank you, Optimus.
But that is how you get your ESG points in.
Well,
anyway, so that's the problem, is that she didn't look very attractive, and I guess she's not particularly attractive in the movie, right?
Yeah, and I agree with Paul real quick, because that was my issue with it. I'm looking at it purely as a financial perspective, and you know what? From a sales standpoint, you could have sold more tickets if you did this. You know, it's. I don't understand the decision. That's what they did, though. I think they may be shooting themselves in the foot, but time will tell. So,
so they're also against hot babes. Like, it's both things. This new generation seems to be, concerned about is, race swapping and no hot women.
There's loads of very talented actors out there that are people of color that have tremendously amazing screen presence, and they just decided not to cast any of them.
Well, you can't do that. You can't do that.
Yeah. Oh, unfortunately, that's what they chose to do, and I think that actually is going to be a big impediment to the box office, especially internationally, are these two leads. I don't know how much these leads are going to cost the box office, but I'm sure that those two alone worldwide are going to shave at least 50 million off the box office minimum.
So how do you cast a movie and pick two really dull people?
You have an ideological driven casting director?
Yeah, but I mean,
That would do the trick.
Is talent also one of the things not on the checkbox list?
It's there, but it's further down.
It really
it's not
is.
so high up as you think, and I'm sure Script can confirm that.
They would have done better casting Brie Larson.
No, actually, generally they could, because she actually has a range to act. Especially if she's got a good director to get that out of her. One of the things that I noticed whenever I would like work for part-time for various casting directors, especially in 07 and 08 and 09, is that the only time they'd ever reject a very, very beautiful girl or woman from working is if they literally did not have any talent. They were just, as what they would say, tits without talent. That's it, all they were.
That's what they say about me.
But now that thing is not even there anymore. It's like, we don't even care if they're good looking. We just want to make sure that they fit the appearance that marketing tells us they should fit, and what the industry around in their bubble says is what they should be promoting.
And to gain ESG points, basically.
Yeah, but I mean, would you lose ESG points by having a young Grace Jones?
No, but that's just it. They don't care. They're pre-casting these roles, right, is what they're doing. And this is something we used to talk about years ago when this shit first happened, is they don't give a crap. Like, instead of just having an open casting call and go, oh my gosh, this actor or actress is the best person for this role, regardless of what color they are, they literally go out and say, we want a Blasian lesbian, woman to play this role. So they'll get so specific that, yeah.
And afterwards, then they say this was the best person for the role. Of the very limited spectrum we were looking for, this was the best person for the role.
But that's they would have been talking about that internally. My experience is that they don't do that overtly. What happens is that they have the regular casting call, and agents send all these people, but they're looking for three traits, but they I guarantee you will have auditioned an awful lot of people.
Yeah, if not for just the for actually looking for someone, they would do it for the performance aspect of it, to say that they auditioned as many people. Because I read that on TV where they're like, no, we want these 3 people, but we'll let 100 other people audition, so it doesn't look like we only want these 3 people. And that's also part of the negotiating tactic as well.
Yeah, they would look bad if they didn't have a wide casting call.
And let's be real, in some cases, or most cases, you are going to look for a type or a what have you for your role. But in most cases, it's generally not so much a race thing as it is a type thing, right? Like, you want a Danny DeVito type, or you want a Sylvester Stallone type.
That's a character actor.
Exactly.
That's
but at the same time, I'm just saying, like, you look at the role, and it's not so much necessarily unless it's specific in the script, you're not always necessarily looking at what the race is as opposed to who do we get who's going to play this role the best. If it's a movie star, or like we were talking about last night with the Superman situation, even though they're throwing out some bigger names out there for some of the main characters, Script and I are pretty much convinced at this point that whoever James Gunn picks are going to be people we've never heard of. Because they are going to probably do more open casting, or at least looking at people that are not movie stars in this sense. But I don't know how they can even try to find the right actor anymore when all you're doing is literally just going, I got to have this specific person, for this role to fill this DEI, you know what I'm trying to say? Fill that DEI role.
But and just going to Little Mermaid, I can actually see why during the audition process, independent of the bullshit, which I don't want to get into, is that they actually picked a very charming person, and that charm does come across on the screen. She just can't act, so she doesn't have the chops yet to be able to do it. But she certainly had screen presence, and I think she's going to do okay. But she has to learn to act.
Yeah. But anyway, let's get some more super chats here while we're at it. We've got Darius Munchausen sending in a thumbs up, I believe, or popcorn. Thank you so much for that, Darius. We got Cameron Burkhurst, who become a new member. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Dr. Longdongler sends in a super sticker. I'm willing to bet this is a thumbs up. So please hit that thumbs up if you haven't already. We appreciate that. We also have John Apocalypse here who says, you see Fast X has home release. Bro, what? Or bro, why? Yeah, well, this is part of the situation that I think Valiant and I have talked about this a few times, and I've brought it up here before. It's the new deal Hollywood worked out with the theater system. They can release these movies quicker if they fall off at the box office, and the only thing they're sacrificing is the extra percentage they would have gotten that first weekend. So, like, instead of getting a 65-35 split with the theaters, they have to go 50-50 across the board. But then they think they're probably making a little bit more money on the video on demand side of things since they're fresh in people's minds.
Yeah. I mean, the PVOD aspect, and remember that I think I don't know if that's globally. That may just be here in the U.S.
Yeah, I'm not 100%.
I mean, it's still playing well internationally, which is what you expect from a Fast X movie. So, but yeah, that's the way it's going to. And we saw the direct impact of that when Warner Brothers was doing that in 2021. We could see the financial reporting from AMC, and the whole year, the rentals that were being paid back out fell sharply. I mean, it was ridiculous, and it was because of the Warner Brothers impact. So yeah, they're taking a hit when they do that. And most of these theater chains have gone to a more levelized payout system just because of that. Hey, you'll get this much over the course of the run if it stays here for 30 days. You'll get this much over the course of the run if it stays here for 45. If it goes to 60, 90 days, you get this much. That's kind of what Adam Aaron, who's the CEO of AMC Theaters, pretty much made abundantly clear during more than one earnings call for AMC. So, and they're them being the biggest player in the market. A lot of the other chains are, likely following suit for the most part, or at least the major ones. But going to PVOD here in the US, yeah, exactly what Tom just said. It's fresh in people's mind. They'll pick up $25 for it. They'll make, they'll make a bunch of money from that. And then when they drop it on PVOD or when they drop it on streaming AVOD or SVOD or whatever overseas, that's when they're going to make a lot more money, because Peacock and Paramount Plus, they really don't have international footprints. So even though they're going to do a split pay one, it's a live action movie, so it goes to Netflix in this case. I'm sorry, to Amazon Prime. The first 4 months, it'll be on Peacock here in the US. The second 10 months, it'll be on Amazon. And then it'll come back to Peacock for the final 4 months of the pay one window. Internationally, however, there's no Peacock for the most part, or at all, virtually. So that gets licensed out to streaming services and linear broadcast in all these big international markets where movies like Fast X do huge box office. So they get lots of money from that. So they have it worked out pretty well. I think, they know what they're doing.
Yeah. Like, for instance, Ant-Man came to VOD really, really quick since it flopped in the theaters, but I just heard the video release date yesterday for Guardians, and the way it sounds, that one's going to get the full 60 or 90 day release. So
no reason to pull that. No.
And we have another guest joining us, Mr. Jonas J. Campbell, here to set VR straight.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it's on PVOD, how do I get it on my iPod?
You came here for that?
Yes, he did. Now kick him out.
You get it through iTunes, which doesn't rhyme. So
this is the only way I get to stream with the boss man here.
I know, it's because he can't make it on Sundays anymore, and I miss him.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, shucks.
Well, we're glad to have you here, Jonas. Before we move on too far, did you get a chance to see Transformers?
I have not yet. I'm pretty much tied down with the pro show and with taking care of my many children.
All right. Well, with that, we'll keep moving along here. Before we get too deep into the weeds again, though, we have a sponsor, Andre.
We do indeed. And this one goes out to all of you that grew up and used to enjoy Mad Magazine before they became a little bit boring, and Cracked before they became woke. But fear not, because someone else has taken over that mantle, and we got you covered. Hold the clip.
Friends, if you're looking for real old school laughs, you're in for a treat, because we've got them right here. Flip City Magazine. Remember Mad Magazine? Then it went woke? Well, don't worry. Flip City has no chance of going woke. That's right. 4 times a year, you'll get an actual printed magazine full of jokes, stories, comics, and more, all about today's pop culture, entertainment, and woke politics. Flip City takes terrible entertainment trends we love to hate with hilarious parodies of Lord of the Rings, Stranger Things, The Walking Dead, Star Trek, Hunters, and more. Trust me when I say there is nothing else like Flip City on the market. So subscribe today. It will be delivered in print, or you can even get it digitally if you're one of those wacky Zoomers. Either way, follow our link and sign up today, and if you put in midnight, you get an extra 10% off. Check out Flip City Magazine today.
And the link for that is, of course, in the description. But, gentlemen, now that we have you all here, we have another topic, which, of course, is the main topic of today. And I'm so glad we have so many Disney watchers and box office analysts to talk about this. Because Deadline Hollywood yesterday, Mexican Island Man says for $2 he subscribed. Flip City, fantastic. Everyone do that. But back on track. Deadline Hollywood, they have the tracking figures for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And that tracking figure has gone down because the movie is now set to open to around 60 million. This is one of the main stories in Deadline Hollywood, as we can see, and they break down why. And of course, we all know why, but we'll go through it eventually. But first, Valiant, what's your instant reaction? Are you shocked at Disney's behalf over this?
No, clearly this is due to racism of people not wanting to watch a white male lead. I think that's kind of where we are at this point in society. No, it's stunning because 7 days ago now, but 6 days before this article came out, the initial box office tracking that was getting reported on Box Office Pro had a range of 80 to 110, 80 million to 110 million domestic open, with a midpoint of course, 95 million. So we're now talking about a drop of 30% of that, 30% in 6 days. Now, I'll be interested. We should have, matter of fact, let me go check right now because I want to see. I don't know for sure if they use the same tracking service out there. There are several of them. And perhaps, one tracking service may be using a different forecasting methodology than another. But matter of fact, we do have the new today's update. Let's see what they've got on Box Office Pro right now. Just updated this morning. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny now ranging 76 to 105. So they've dropped it 17%. Now the thing with that though is
that's for the worldwide. You mean?
No, that's domestic.
Oh, okay.
They just track domestic now. Their data may not have yet caught up. Deadline, obviously.
Or is that for the 5-day?
No, that's just the 3-day. That's the 3-day opening. So obviously we have a broad range. Now, you can pick and choose which one you want to believe. I will tell you, though, as much as I like to look at Box Office Pro, because, again, it does give us a good sense 30 days out from a film, generally speaking, once pre-sales begin, of where we might wind up. However, that being said, Deadline magazine tends to be far more accurate in terms of if you go back and look at their historical projections. Now, they have not commonly done one this far out. They put this out 3 weeks before this movie opens. Of course, there's a lot of things that could change. And as I stated in my video, I think this is more of a red flag warning sign. Disney, y'all need to do something and do something quickly. Now, granted, they haven't ramped up the big marketing machine yet. They're probably waiting till after next weekend when Flash and Elemental, which is another Disney product, gets out of the way. And then I think you'll start seeing the marketing machine ramp up. But what kind of impact is that going to have realistically if we're starting at $60 million as a 3-day domestic open, which is horrific? Is it going to jazz it all the way back up to 100 by the time it does? I don't know. That's a stretch. And Anthony D'Alessandro in this article seems to think that 70 million. He's like, some people out there talking 70 million, and his quote in this article is, "I think that's a stretch." So it's not looking good. Not looking good.
I really I struggle with this. I'm not great at tracking box office numbers, which is why I'm glad I'm in this circle here where other people can do it. Because if I guess a hard number, I don't like to guess hard numbers. I like to wait until I receive them. The one thing that I can say here is that this is probably going to have a very bad, the existence of this article will have a negative effect on the box office for this movie, because it's going to create the perception they've got a turd on their hands.
Right.
Thank you for bringing that up. That
Exactly.
was going to be my question. And I would want to ask everyone in the panel, Mr. Chato, let's begin with you. Why are Deadline Hollywood, that usually has Hollywood and Disney's back, why are they publishing this article when the only thing that can come of it is to further cement the impression that's already out there that this movie's a turd?
That's because Disney only has about $200 million of free cash left, and they're not afraid of them anymore.
Shout out to Mexican Iron Man.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
So I think it's again, it's the rats leaving the ship, or the mice leaving the ship. They're not afraid of Disney right now. They see Disney in turmoil, and is truth becoming? At some point, most magazines and publications, they do have people of integrity or feel that they have integrity, and if they keep massaging the news, at some point they rebel and go, we got to throw in the odd truthful tidbit, or we're not going to be trusted at all. and I think that's where we're at with this.
Something I'll add to what Paul's saying here is Fortune obviously ran this article talking about the disaster at Lucasfilm. They're finally being very open and honest about how bad that's going. Forbes ran a long article about Pixar and how the magic has left Pixar.
Mm-hmm.
That something has changed in the way that the media is reporting on Disney. And there's, of course, the conspiracy theorists that say that it's, and I'm not saying they're wrong by saying they're conspiracy theorists. There's the conspiracy theorists who say that it's Bob Iger has given them permission so that he can make some hard moves and not be so unpopular when he does it. There's maybe something to that, but I really think it comes down to the fact that if it has gotten this bad that Disney cannot spin an Indiana Jones film coming out as a positive in some way, man, what a situation to be in.
And don't forget, these mainstream entertainment publications have to be careful of the actors that are in the films also. So if they pan a film, actors will often take that personally. So yeah, you pan that film, well, I'm not going to give you an interview. So there are multiple pressures on these magazines depending on who's in the film even.
Yeah. Script, what say you to this? Because I also don't think that that at this point, no one is too worried about not getting interviews for this particular movie. Script, why are Hollywood doing this? Why are they basically killing off the movie by running this piece?
Probably twofold. First one is that what's Disney going to do to them? They can't really do much of anything at this point. They are in over their heads from so many other angles that the trades can actually be a little bit more aggressive. The other part too is they're also hedging their bets. If Indiana Jones takes in more than 60 million in their opening, they're able to at least market that it's a success, and therefore have plausible deniability that they're ever attacking Disney in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because
plus you get the headlines that say that it opened above expectations, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, think of all the attention this article got yesterday and today, talking about it right now. Think of all the clicks. I mean, to Deadline, if I'm Anthony D'Alessandro and whoever his editor is, it's like, look, this is the numbers that we're getting. This is the tracking that we have right now. This is too big of a story not to run. you know, so it's like, why not? It's like, you have the data. We're going to talk about this. It's become a huge thing now. And I mean, it's just good business. And I think to everything Script said, I totally agree. I mean, what is Disney going to do at this point? I mean, they have to come out and deny and say, oh no, it's actually better than that. We'll be fine. We'll be fine. Or they have the deafening silence of no reply because they know they're in some deep poo.
Yeah, and I think, like, if we've learned anything over the last few years, is never ever discount the conspiracy theories, because they just might be onto something. And I think that part of it is that whoever was running cover, or was the leg breaker making everyone fall in line, is either no longer there or has been told to ease up a little bit. I think that's part of it. But another part, as you said, Chato, is that they are not afraid of Disney anymore, because Disney are no longer the king of the hill, and everyone sees it. Everyone sees Bob Iger can't fix this. The ship is leaking. Everything is going to hell everywhere all at once with Disney right now. The MCU, if they begin now, they take the opportunity of the writer's strike to scrap everything and start over. It's still going to take like 3 years. It's going to take all of Phase 5 to get back on track to where they were. At least it's going to take up to six to do it.
Well, you can. It's like crying wolf. You can only gush about the movies so many times and be wrong.
Exactly, and like Star Wars. Again, you have to scrap everything and start over in a sense. And is there any will to do that? No. Indiana Jones, that's done. Willow was done. That's not coming back. The live action remakes, they just took a punch in the nose. Who knows how successful they're going to be after this, especially now with Universal coming gunning for them as well. I mean, it used to be that the live action remakes was something specific to Disney, but now when Universal are doing How to Train Your Dragon coming on Disney's turfs, I'm not saying that movie is going to be a hit, but I am saying it's going to further devalue and make Disney's live action remakes less special.
Yeah. And I mean, just as a reminder, folks, 2023, by far and away the largest market share of theatrical revenues that Universal has seen in more than a decade.
Yeah, I think that we're going to see more of a shift to the industry trades becoming more beholden to Universal, as they see that Universal are rapidly becoming what Disney used to be. They are the new king of the hill that needs to be revered, whereas Disney is no longer that. They are imploding and they're collapsing and they're going downhill. Is there a way to stop it? Yes, but is there a way to practically actually do it that can be done in the current political climate with the current leadership structure and board makeup? I don't think so. Not in the short term.
No. And the big difference, The big difference real quick is that, you know, Disney is a theme park company that is being run by a bunch of Hollywood elites. Universal Studio has a lot of Hollywood elites in it, but it's being run by a telecommunications company. I mean, so it's, you know, it's, at the end of the day, it's like, I think we want to make some money. So I think that has a big impact on the divergence of directions between these two major studios that we're seeing now. And Universal is just making good products that people are enjoying, and they're giving audiences what they want, and they're being soundly rewarded for it. Disney is doing the other thing.
Well, also with Universal's business model, I'm sorry, I need to back this up a little. Comcast's business model, they have a recession-proof business for the most part, because people will still need internet, whether or not the economy is doing fantastic. Where Disney, being a pure entertainment play, people can go anywhere to get their entertainment, and their theme parks are expensive. And on the theme park side, Universal has not just Universal properties, but also they've got their hands in Nintendo and Warner Brothers. So they've diversified in a way that Disney cannot. And as we've seen, that Disney Omni brand when it starts to sour in the views of customers. Sorry, not to go too far off on a tangent here, but Chris Nee, who is the Blue's Clues lady, and she did this Ridley Jones show. She talks about how Disney does better in kids entertainment because it's a trusted brand. She obviously is a little bit biased on there. That trust is gone. And so Universal can get past that. They can shift something out of the parks. Disney can't do that. They've tainted everything.
Well, not to shift the conversation here, but at the end of the day, Indiana Jones isn't necessarily a kid's property. And I think that the fact that this is facing a really bad opening weekend may have less to do with Disney's image than it has to do with rebootquels, images, what Crystal Skull has done to the franchise, maybe a little bit of Star Wars, but more so in the sense of how bad, it treated the other characters. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I think a lot more people are just kind of turning away from this, because I thought this had a chance to be a big opening because it's a different audience than like Star Wars is or the Marvel movies are, right? It's Indiana Jones. It's a franchise for your dad and your grandpa.
Well,
right?
That's exactly what's in this article, and that's one of the things that I really hit on in the video I did yesterday, and that was the demographic breakdown of where they're seeing a lot of the sales come from, and it's the older crowd. They're not getting a lot of 18 to 35 in for this movie. And they don't know if that's going to happen. And of course, the older crowd that drove things like Top Gun Maverick into the stratosphere, that happened because they went to the movie and the movie was universally adored. I don't see that happening here.
That's going to be a problem, I think.
That's going to be the real problem, because Top Gun Maverick became I'm going to take the kids and the grandkids to this. Y'all need to see this. Versus this, they're already starting behind the 8 ball with, not having that younger audience. And I don't know if they're going to get it at all.
Yeah, also, I don't see them going back 4 or 5 times like they did with Top Gun. Sorry, Andre.
Also, Top Gun Maverick had younger point of view characters. It had a number of characters that younger audiences could project themselves into.
Well, but we got
the only thing that Indiana Jones has is the angry, condescending flea bag. Now, of course, there are some Karens out there that will absolutely project themselves into her, but they're not going to be the ones to see an Indiana Jones movie in the first place. Now, are they? The ones who will see Indiana Jones are the ones that are between ages 30 and 50, who are still of box office age. Because of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I don't know how many who are younger than in their 30s really care or have any kind of affection for or interest in Indiana Jones in the first place. That may be true, aging brand.
And that's what I was getting at too, is I was thinking last night, I'm like, God, maybe Crystal Skull did do more damage than I thought at the end of the day. And people who are remembering that film, I mean, it was 15 years ago, but because I thought that this would be kind of, it was like Disney proof in a sense of like nobody, I've said this before, most people didn't even realize Marvel and Star Wars were part of Disney until Disney Plus, right? We do. The people in the audience listening know because you guys keep up with this stuff. But as far as the average Joe, they don't know that crap. They don't give a crap.
Well, and
I doubt most people even know that Indiana Jones has anything to do with Disney still to this day. But go ahead, Valiant.
Yeah. I was going to say, since we started off talking about Transformers, it's another great example of what happens with brand damage, right? The Last Night, I hated that movie. I saw that in the theater. That was the first one I think I saw in the theater because Renegade Jr. wanted to go see it. And it was just, I hate it. It was boring. It was just so long. And everybody loved Bumblebee, right? Or at least everybody that saw it. A lot of people really said that was one of the best ones ever. I think, Andre, you said you thought it was the best one.
Oh, absolutely. It's fantastic. Yeah. I'll defend that movie no end.
Yeah.
Top 2 of the Transformers series.
What happened in the box office? It was the worst box office.
This one sucked.
Yeah, it was the worst box office they had because of the stain of the movie that came before it.
Exactly.
I think this is the same situation. The last memory people have of Indiana Jones in the theater was not good.
Part-time.
It's fascinating to me comparing, say, Transformers to Fast X. And by the way, if they did a Transformers and Fast X crossover, oh man, that'd be amazing. But
I was going to say there was some other kind of tease, but not necessarily Fast X.
Okay, sorry. But Fast X, I think it has a similar budget reported to Indiana Jones.
Yes.
But it's not the end of the world for Fast X to go to PVOD so quickly. Whereas if Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny goes to PVOD, that is a absolute disaster for the Walt Disney Company.
Yeah, because Disney Plus has a massive international footprint. So when they put something on Disney Plus, it's in every major international market. Whereas when they go PVOD on Fast X, there's no Peacock in Korea. I mean, they still have to license stuff out and things there. So they're still making tons of money by licensing out those kinds of films. Whereas, again, Disney just itself consumes everything it produces after it leaves the theater. Disney Plus is losing, what, $1 billion per fiscal quarter? So, no, it doesn't work.
The other thing I'll add here is that Transformers didn't get the pass that Fast X does. Fast X, I think everybody understands what it is, whereas Transformers, the critics are merciless on the Transformers, especially the Michael Bay ones. Even though from a technical standpoint, they're actually very impressive. He's an incredible shooter as far as the cinematography goes. He can make a shot of an ugly Chinese apartment building look absolutely amazing, but they don't care because it's a silly popcorn flick made to sell toys. It's a double standard. I'm not deeply offended by it, but it's just fascinating to me why one franchise, it's okay, another franchise, not so much.
Mm-hmm. Well, and not to shift the focus again here, but I think we have a trend happening, and not so much with Disney per se, but just it's weird. We have like not just Marvel fatigue or superhero fatigue, what people had talked about before, but it almost feels like we have what I would call blockbuster fatigue, right? Or tentpole fatigue. Because out of all the films that have come out this summer so far, most of them have pretty much bombed. I mean, even the successes like Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is barely a success at this point.
Its claim to fame is that it's not going to lose a fortune. It'll be lucky.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
It's like even comparative success.
Exactly. Fast X has been a soft movie. It didn't flop, but it didn't do great. But just about everything else that has come out has flopped so far this summer, other than Spider-Verse, and that was somewhat of a surprise because it opened much bigger than the original film did, basically.
Yeah, but I think that there's something wrong with a number of the movies, that they just don't entice audiences and please audiences in the way that movies did only a few short years ago. Part of that, I think, is down to like the ESG requirements that that entertainment companies are afflicted by, which we do see, for instance, in the leads in the new Transformers movies. That wouldn't have happened without ESG and all this new puritanism, stuff like that, and it's detrimental to the movie. And there are more examples of that with like social messaging. And if you go and check out our most recent video with stakeholder capitalism and how you have like this desire, or not you, but like how certain individuals in the studio aren't so much interested in creating shareholder value as they are in changing the world for other stakeholders than the shareholders.
Milton Friedman
gonna be extremely detrimental to the movie-going experience. And what was so eye-opening for me, I've said this before, but like I think now 3 weeks ago, I went to the cinema for a double billing. And it was first Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey, followed by Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. And the more I think about it, that may have been the single best cinematic experience of my life. I have seen both of those movies many, many, many times before, but just seeing them on the big screen was an absolutely mesmerizing experience, something I have never experienced seeing them in my own home theater. This was a completely different immersive experience, and no CGI shitfests I've witnessed in the past 20 years comes anywhere close. Now, I'm not saying that every movie needs to be Stanley Kubrick, But I am saying that the movies are now so vanilla and so safe and so inoffensive and so mundane and so boring and so by the numbers that they don't give you anything watching it. So what's the point in going? Of course,
soulless corporate paddling.
Yes, soulless drivel.
I agree. And I would even trade to go back to like the summer of 98, where even though Godzilla was a disappointment, the hype surrounding the lead up to it, it was still, you know what I mean? I'd even just as soon go back to something like that at this point and be like disappointed by it. But I think you guys are right. I think you're hitting the nail on the head. And I think another big point of it, going back to something we were just talking about before with Fast X coming to video on demand, I think people aren't willing to take the chance anymore on these big blockbusters. They're unless they hear enough people saying, "Oh, it's good, it's good, it's good," they're just going to be like, "No, I'll just wait for it to come to streaming." I think and it's their own fault for doing this. But I can't believe we're sitting here talking about an Indiana Jones movie possibly opening under $100 million right now. Because that's insane. Because that is a flat out flop at the end of the day, especially for a movie that costs this much.
It's quite representative of the current times.
Seems to be, and which is initially why I brought up the point. It's like people are getting sick and tired of blockbusters in general, not just superhero movies, but because we were talking about what the biggest films of the year so far have been on Mead last night. And it's been stuff like, outside of Mario Brothers, which is an IP, but it's not a sequel to something that's been around. So we can kind of chalk that as a, a neutral ground. But, you had Megan, which was a surprise hit this year, and a couple other more original ideas. But other than that, all we've gotten has been a slew of sequels and prequels and rebootquels. And I mean, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I wonder what is the thing that would return us to a place where like a Juno, which is a moment in time for so many.
I don't know
reasons.
if we can get back there for a while, Jonas.
Juno was terrible.
It was terrible, but I get his point. I do get his point.
In fact, Juno was one of the inciting incidences that got us to this point here. What is it about? It's about a woman who gets pregnant through negligent means and then blames everybody else and then already solves the problem. And now we just wait for 90 minutes for her to give birth and to give up the kid. That's what Juno is. That is not a story.
Yeah, but what's better for society? A small story about all these family problems. It's a little awkward, and it's in that phase where they figured out that they can kind of ape that Napoleon Dynamite style a little bit by having a bunch of awkward people together.
Maybe Napoleon Dynamite would have been a better example. Because I get what you're saying, but Juno was a bad movie.
Diablo Cody was not a good contributor to the screenwriting industry. So many people try to want to be like.
No, but again,
so much dialogue from other people.
I get what Jonas is saying, though. There was a time where you could do a quirky movie like Napoleon Dynamite, or something else that didn't have like an IP attached to it, right?
Whatever the John Krasinski film was with Maya Rudolph in it. That one that I don't remember if it was good or bad, but a bunch of people saw it.
Yes, where they were traveling around and she was pregnant and we weren't impressed.
Right, that one.
That one, yeah, I know.
Or like a Harold and Kumar, something fun that isn't attached to something we already know. Like we've missed out on that.
So, for instance, Whatever Happened to Gilbert Grape is possibly in that same category, and I thought were really good.
That would make sense.
Again, like that had more of an indie feel to it. But yes, exactly. Juno is also in that kind of range of. It's not something that's this big, huge, well-known thing. You're getting people in the seats by saying, "Look, we got these movie stars together. We got this interesting story here. Maybe not Juno, but
Juno I thought was fine. What was clear was her second movie. I went, "Oh my God, Juno's an accident."
Yeah,
that was the first thing that came out of my mind. Somebody can have an idea and a script or a song or any number of things that they've been holding on to for a while, and it's really fantastic, and then there's just nothing else that they've got. They have nothing else to contribute. But I can also recognize why she became a darling of Hollywood, but I don't think she's writing any. Pardon me?
For a while.
Yeah, for a while.
Her movies stopped.
It was clear she couldn't write anything else.
I saw that from the get-go. In fact, Juno was my barometer for how do you tell if there's some sort of woke crazy person in the room. They liked Juno. They really liked Juno.
So what
was how you did it.
So what was it about Juno that irked you?
Just the fact that she solves the problem in the first 15 minutes. and we're waiting. We are waiting for her to give birth and hand it off to Jennifer Gardner. And they're trying to create this other conflict between her and Jason Bateman, where he's not really committed, and then he's more interested in the kid, and it's like that's just kind of weird and creepy, and I don't see anything of value in that.
Yeah, I mean, it works as a weird indie film, but they try to present a weird indie film as a mainstream movie.
And that one got nominated. Yeah, that one got nominated for an Academy Award, I do believe.
Oh yeah, because it pushed a really pro-female taking charge type of narrative, and that's what Hollywood was liking at the time, and then they just kept on escalating every year subsequently.
And I think the conservative Christian crowd appreciated that it ended with adoption and not something else. So
it had one of those kind of situations where it was right time, right place kind of movie, but I agree with Script. It was a bad movie.
Okay. Well,
but no, I think the better example you brought up was like Napoleon Dynamite or something like that. Because we don't have studios taking chances anymore. I mean, it's pretty sad when we're sitting here going, Mario Brothers was kind of Universal taking a chance, right? Like,
well, no, they're taking a chance, but what they've done is, and we talked about this already, is the bean counters.
Well, I just meant the irony of it. But
the bean counters have gone. Do we do 3 movies at 200 million, and I'm exaggerating, 200 million a piece, where one of them could very likely hit $1 billion, or do we do 30 movies, each of which might average out to a profit of 100 million by the time everything is all totaled? And again, I'm exaggerating, but that's the old movie and the old movie business. It's like the idea that fewer movies that they can worry about is way easier to deal with than trying to deal with the French Connection and Panic in Needle Park and all these like movies that might make you $5 million at the end of the day. That's a lot of stuff to try to manage and deal with. And they don't want to do that. They'd rather pick 4 movies, $200 million a piece. Yeah. And then one makes $1 billion. Okay, we're done next year. I mean, that's
you're not wrong. That used to be the exact thing. The model used to be just that. Only it would be like more like 1 or 2 big movies a year. And then the rest were those other ones. But the difference there was, Paul, is instead of the rest of their movies still being almost as expensive as these superhero movies, which is we're seeing right now, movies like The French Connection only cost like $1.5 million to make.
No.
See, that's the big difference there, to where even by today's standards, that's like a $10 million movie.
Actually,
right, making like 100 or more $1 million.
That was about 17 million. It was yeah, no, I remember that. But again, it's like it was big news when they made Cleopatra with not the Netflix
Elizabeth
one, with Elizabeth Taylor.
So that was them spending way too much. I think that was like a budget of like 60 million at that time, which is the equivalent of like 300 now.
Is it? Yeah. Okay, fine. But the thing is, that was the anomaly. And now it's like they're only making Cleopatras.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was getting at exactly. And yeah, because the French Connection's budget was $1.8 million.
Well, think
back
of all
in
the
1972.
That they have killed with this budgetary problem. You have horror films are allowed to do their thing because they can still do that for cheap. They're usually isolated stories. A global scale horror film is pretty rare. And then they've got Sandra Bullock, who is the only person that seems to be successfully getting rom-coms to market right now.
Yeah,
which
you're not wrong.
They have murdered the post theatrical window, which I do believe that's Valiant. I think you commented on this. Oh wait, he's away from his keyboard at the moment. Where the rom-coms would make their money. So the DVD of How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days or Harry Met Sally or whatever, they could keep reissuing it. And now these streaming services have murdered that. So I think the small budget film, as easy as it would be to distribute that everywhere, I wonder if they've just killed the business case for it completely.
Well, I think that case is still there. It's just
streaming,
it's the streaming is what really screwed them over in this sense, because this was always my objection to streaming. You are killing the secondary physical market, and that is such a huge revenue stream, which supports and funds so many mid-level movies, and now it's just gone because of streaming. That was one of like the big objections there. But on the topic of like budgets, I'm very glad that you brought up Cleopatra. You know how much it cost back in the day in
31
modern day
million.
terms?
I don't know
Same
what the
as
modern
Indiana
is.
Jones.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was 31 million back in '63.
Yeah, we got a parallel.
Yeah.
That was a terrible film, by the way.
Which the movie didn't out and out flop, but what it was a turning point for the studios, right? Because this was a time when the old moguls were dying off or selling off the studios. Disney was like the only one still left hanging on to his studio. And they were floundering, making movies like Cleopatra and Paint Your Wagon, these expensive ass musicals and overbloated westerns and all this kind of crap that people were getting sick of. And it was the guys like Friedkin who brought in like French Connection and you know, like we've talked about Godfather and all these other movies that were taking a chance, right? But they also didn't cost a fortune. That was the other thing. But they brought in box office business. American Graffiti was another great example in that era that George Lucas put together for, I believe, $5 million was the budget. I think it ended up running over like at 6 or 7 million, but still, at the end of the day, it still made almost close to 100 million back then, which is like, now would be insane. It'd be like a movie making 400, 500, 600 million like that. You know, it's like, that's just a Joker level kind of thing. But every movie was doing that. Well, not every movie, but every one of those classics we keep talking about to this day, I meant.
Yeah. And the streaming market has really undercut the creation of just that particular kind of movie, which is unfortunate.
Air and Tetris are the closest we've gotten to that in the last few years, but what happened to those movies? Tetris was straight to streaming, and Air got a minimal theatrical release. It did okay in the theaters, actually. In fact, it did well enough that I think they extended its theatrical run. But then it quickly went to Amazon, which is where it was supposed to go anyway, because it was an Amazon movie.
And has Amazon made similar statements like Netflix, to where Netflix has said they do not care about theatrical, which is amazing and mind-boggling to me. But has Amazon said something similar?
I mean, it seems to me that Amazon has a little bit more interest than does Netflix. Netflix's interest in theatrical is only insofar as to get maybe a handful of pictures a year, awards eligible.
Yeah.
Like All Quiet on the Western Front, that kind of thing, where they do a limited release just to get it over that hump, and then it's on Netflix. That's it.
Yep. And yes, Air did have a theatrical release that managed to bring in close to what it costs to make. So at the end of the day, Amazon's not going to really lose much money on that movie, if not anything at all, because it's also coming to video this fall. And it did get a lot of praise, and I think it's going to go up for Oscars, and that's exactly it, Valiant. I think Amazon's thinking a little bit more about getting into the theatrical business, and I think that's why they bought MGM to begin with. So we'll see how that rolls here with them. But back to the Indiana Jones business and the bigger problem at hand, because we got a few more bigger movies that are coming out yet this year. But I think I wonder if the studios are starting to worry, because Flash is another one that's looking like it's going to have a soft landing, which I don't know if Warner's so much worried about the box office end of things, but at the end of the day, they're not doing too well for money either. I mean, my point is I don't think they ever expected Flash to make money, but they do need it to make a little bit of money to gain back some of what they spent on it at the end of the day.
Especially since they have Aquaman over the horizon as well.
And I've heard that thing is a freaking mess. I mean, weren't you guys talking a little bit about that before I got in here? Because I thought I caught the tail end of a discussion about that.
Nope, not about Aquaman. That's our final
something else.
of today.
Okay, that's what it was. Okay. I couldn't remember which one was which, because we were talking so much shit before the show. But anyway.
Well, it's just when you have Elemental and The Flash hitting on the same day, and neither of them is projected to be the clear winner in this. What a disaster to be beat out they're fighting for second place in everyone's hearts, I guess you would say. Or is the carryover going to be whatever is the number one movie? If Transformers beats them next weekend, that's really going to be saying a lot.
Well, I think Transformers is going to be fighting to beat Spider-Verse this weekend. That's the other problem here, is you have what used to be at least a franchise, the kid market had cornered.
Mm-hmm. Spider-Verse
is taking that big chunk of that market. Go ahead.
Spider-Verse beating them out in week 3 is a much better narrative from Disney's standpoint than Transformers beating them out in week 2. I got to say that.
Yeah, because I know they don't make much money. They don't make any money off the film part of Spider-Man, but they do have a chunk of the toys, if not the entire chunk of the toys, from my memory of how the deal broke down. So yeah, they will benefit a little bit from Spider-Verse, but not as much as Amy Pascal.
And believe you me, the success of Spider-Verse is why there's all this talk of live action Miles Morales now, kids.
Well, you mean Shameik Moore?
Well, I don't know if it'll be that individual necessarily, but there was rumors before that, and now that the movie did well, that it's going to happen. We're going to get a live action Miles Morales.
Oh yeah.
I'd be interested to see how well that actually winds up doing compared to the animated one.
Well, Sony's got to be kicking themselves in the ass right now, because guess what? They're not very far along with the third part of this movie. Why they weren't making it alongside of it is beyond me. This movie should be ready to come out for Christmas.
Yeah, it should.
I mean, as of right now, it's still slated for what, summer next
They
year?
haven't even recorded the voices yet that I know of. Because they asked the one voice actress, they're like, how far along are you guys on Spider-Verse 3? She's like, I haven't even gone in to do my voice work yet. She's like, I have no idea.
If the timeline is the same, I mean, we're talking like 4 years out, right? I mean, that's how long they've been recording dialogue for this film.
Yeah.
For the current
they
one.
usually do a couple of years before they even begin animation.
That's what I was thinking, and that's where I'm scratching my head here going, how is this going to work out?
Well, they're trying to make it come out for next year, so whatever tricks they're using.
Well, I can't see Tom Rothman throwing more money at it. That's not his style.
Maybe they're going to get Parker and Stone in from South Park Studios who can crank out cartoon in like 2 hours.
Most of the movie takes place in the South Park multiverse.
Yeah.
Lego and South Park multiverse. There you go.
Spider-Man.
I'm Spider-Man. I'm Spider-Man.
Well, what that tells me is that there's probably way more action and not a whole lot of dialogue in the sequel. Because you don't need the actors to come in to record to do animate action at all.
That could be, but normally you guys are right, because normally the dialogue is done way before they even get to the point of that stuff. Unless they're bringing him in later and they've got stand-ins, or like you said, they're not even getting to the acting parts yet, and they're just worried about the bigger set pieces or something, because there's no way this movie's coming out next year if they haven't gotten that far along yet.
Well, let me say this for what it's worth, and I know this is IMDb Pro, and it's not always entirely accurate, but they have this listed right now, Beyond the Spider-Verse, which is the third movie for 2024. They're showing it as in post-production as of April 5th. Now, figure that one out.
That makes sense. That would be normal scheduling things. If they were to do the recording of the first two movies back-to-back.
Yeah.
Then that would make sense. Which means that either the actors have no idea that their movie that they were recording was broken.
Haley Steinfeld was one.
Well, that's why I was saying figure that one out, because if they're saying we don't know what's going on with it, but we've got post-production, well, somebody's wrong and somebody's right.
Well, not only that, actors don't always know what they're doing, especially when they work for bigger IPs. They'll be brought in, they'll be getting paid for 2 movies, but they'll only be working from their perspective what appears to be one movie. And they have no idea that a sequel's being made because maybe their agent didn't tell them, or they got confused. Gwyneth Paltrow legendarily had no idea she was in Spider-Man films because she was. It was scheduled up against all the other stuff that she was working on. So she just thought it was all the same project until she realized, oh wait, I guess they were different. But that was many, many months after the fact.
Right, and somebody had to tell her that scene that was with Tony Stark and in Happy Hogan, Avengers, whatever, was in fact a Spider-Man
movie.
Well, I'm going to take her at her face value here, considering she'd probably seen the movie already and known that all the work she had done was in this movie. But I'm also not going to say that they haven't been working without the actors at this point, because we also live in a world where it's probably not too hard to resync a voice through a computer program than it used to be as well.
And re-render the lips and emotions.
Exactly.
The big question I have for the sequel to the sequel part 2 for this movie is just what is Spot's new heightened power? That has not been revealed. We don't know what Ultimate Spot can do.
Spot is an amazing villain. So
I love it. I thought he's fantastic, but we got no hint of what Ultimate Spot is.
Yeah, well, and SDR Red Wolf says Spider-Verse is animated by 3D, which means you can render the entire movie faster than real time. This isn't hand drawn. This part is true. There's still elements that take almost as long as hand drawn. So the amount of time to do an animated movie hasn't really changed. It's just how they do them.
I love Spot. He's very good. Very good
they could cut down the production on an animated movie to maybe like 2 years, but that's still cutting it pretty close. But again, they do have a lot of the. Okay, I'll give them this. They probably are just going to use a lot of the same elements they created for Across the Spider-Verse for the sequel. So you're right in that respect that they don't have to rebuild everything and all that kind of stuff. So they already have the 3D models and everything. Yeah.
Models are what takes the most time.
And that's what I'm saying. 3D. Exactly. They basically are amortizing the work they did for Across the Spider-Verse probably for the third film.
Right. And if they use the same cityscape, if they use the same characters, which they're going to, then there's not going to be any modeling. At Pixar, because my friend worked there at Pixar, they would literally say, no, we can't add that character. We don't have the budget to model a new character because it's very complicated.
Well,
and he was a puppet, what is called a puppeteer.
They've also made sure that any Spider-Man you could want, they will have on hand. So in the future.
Yeah. I mean, it's, yeah.
So I think that's kind of how they managed to do this. Probably that would be my guess.
Well, I mean, look at the very end. Am I going to spoil anything by telling everyone what the last sequence of the film is? Am I going to? I
don't know. I'm not going to speak for the crowd or the
of which film of
Transformers?
Spider-Verse.
I think the people that plan on seeing it have seen it by now. But
you know what? Yeah, the movie is now 1 week in. If anyone has a huge objection, then raise those objections in the comments now or forever hold your peace.
Actually, I haven't seen it yet. I've been
okay, so I won't spoil.
Well, you're going to check out anyway here.
Exactly. I was going to say, yeah. Paul, you could go ahead after I'm gone.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what people are saying here. Like, yeah, not seeing it or already saw it, so go for it. But well, after Jonas is gone, if you are watching it, we do respect that.
Thank you.
All right.
And,
so Jonas, what you got going on?
Mostly I'm doing stuff with the Pro Show, and I'm going to be part of the 20K celebration tomorrow. Trying to do investigative work for that park place. There is so much going on and so much to keep track of that I thought when I started doing this, it would be a silly little thing and I'd be looking at some theme park stuff or whatever. I never knew we'd have to go so deep in the numbers and filings and all this kind of thing. Paul, I sent you a question in the private chat over there. I'll follow up on DMs. But thank you guys so much for having me. It is always an absolute blast to be here on Midnight's Edge. You guys are the best.
No problem. Love to have you. Take care, Jonas.
See you. Yeah. We'll pick it up on DM on Twitter.
Perfect.
Just slide into his DMs.
You
and Valiant.
Get lost, Jonas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got to run too. Thanks for having me, gentlemen. It's always a pleasure. Good to see everybody out there. Good to see the chat. Y'all make sure if you haven't done it yet,
more lightning streams. You need more streak lightning in your logo.
Oh yeah. Well, I'll talk to Steven about that.
He's working on his new channel.
That's right.
Well, sort of. Yeah, I just got a lot more to film before that gets going.
You need to obscure the VR even more so people can't read it. I'm just saying.
Yeah, well, I'll leave that one to Steven. This wants to give me some more lightning. But
Valiant
no, guys.
Renegade.
Wait, so what's that?
Valiant Renegade. That's what it looks like.
All right, gang. I'll see y'all later.
Bye.
Have a good one. Good to see you, Paul. Good to see you.
Bye, Valiant.
Tom and Andre.
Thanks for joining us.
Take care.
Take care.
Yeah, nice of them to pop in. So, we know the second movie is going to be the reassemblage of the characters from the first Spider-Verse movie. We now know that. So, I don't know how many of the multiverse Spider-Men are going to be in it. I'm going to take a guess, not very many. I don't think they could do another movie with that Miguel verse, as I call it. There's no value in it. I think they need to calm it down a bit, and the return of all the favorites from the first movie. That's what the third movie is going to be.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
Well, look, Gwen assembled them. That was the final basic scene of the movie, was Gwen assembling the old team against the will of Miguel.
She's the key to everything.
I actually prefer the Gwen Spider-Verse over the Miles Spider-Verse. I don't find the repetitive nature of Miles' problems with his parents and being late and all that Peter Parker-y stuff. I just found that repetitive and boring. I thought Gwen is the best character in the entire movie.
It's why they started the movie with 20 minutes of her, because there's nothing really too authentic about Miles's conundrums.
That's a good point. Even though I thought that it was a superfluous, if it's a Miles movie, you need to start with Miles. I was really shocked.
Mm-hmm.
So technically, they shouldn't have started with her, but I think you're right that I think they went, wow, the Gwen stuff is way more interesting. We better start.
So he can't even start off his own sequel.
No. I think that's the dumbest thing in the world from a writing perspective.
Yeah, you should be getting your main character getting to your main hero or main character as quickly as possible. And in this case, they did the opposite. They delayed the gratification of that, because even with Luke Skywalker, you get him within 15 minutes of the movie.
Well, Return of the Jedi, they make you wait a little bit, but yeah.
Well, I mean, but
it's still within 15 minutes.
There's very few movies that set things up and get things heated as quickly as the first Lord of the Rings movie.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of stuff they pack into the first half hour is just absolutely insane. Like,
especially when it looks like all they're doing is sitting around.
What, in Lord of the Rings?
That's really all they're doing for the first half hour of the movie. They're just talking and sitting around.
But they're setting things up, and then you get the.
I know you're not wrong, but I'm just saying.
Wow. But I mean, you get to know the characters. Then you get the ring and man. I don't want to get into it, but it's almost the perfect opening to an adventure movie. It's just fantastic, and I think you're right, Script, that they looked at their rushes and I went, well, the Gwen stuff is way more interesting than the Miles stuff, so let's start with that. And in that sense, they were right. It was just a much better opening from an emotional, action-y. And I like her characterization better too. Her eyes are much more effective, the animated eyes.
Well, I'm just biting my tongue when it comes to the Spider-Verse stuff. So let's move on with some super chats here.
What's it done? What's it done on the weekend? What was its final total?
I don't know. It's at
right
now. I haven't looked.
Yeah, we'll get back to it come Monday.
I think it's hit on somewhere in the 300 million range now, at least.
Okay.
Yeah. It's fairly okay.
Waltman has a pair here and says
closing in on 400.
Says the idea of George buying back Lucasfilm is speculative on Sparrow's end. Cameron doubts it, but hopes it is, i.e. Saban and Power Rangers as an example. The only tangible thing to work off of that Cameron noted is meeting between Lucasfilm and Disney legal teams, and Iger about to sell will play out since they may have a buyer. Well, if Disney and Lucasfilm legal teams are meeting, it's probably over this business in the UK and the Acolyte and their stuff being seized. To be honest with you.
There are many different things legal can meet over.
Look, I know this has been trending. It's been making a big splash, and I'm not going to say anything other than it is one of the most far-fetched and unbelievable things I've heard in a while, because there's so many reasons why George wouldn't do this or couldn't do this, and there's no real good reason why Disney should.
Well, except you listen to George's final swan song speech where he talks about selling to Disney,
the white slaver thing.
White slavers.
He backtracked on
that. But that was his emotional truth at that moment.
Yeah.
Okay, the backtracking is a completely different political beast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what
but at the end of the day, my point is, why would he care? Dude is in his
It's
70s.
His children. No, but he can.
He's got real kids now.
No, he can pass, which he doesn't care about. I mean, that doesn't matter. But if he pulls a Saban and gets it back for $500 million, I would take it if I was George.
Yeah, the only drawback to that is Disney has, in the last decade, pretty much deeply integrated Star Wars into so many aspects of their other properties.
Right, but those stay.
Untangling that would be a nightmare.
No, but that would stay. Those things would be long term. No, those things would stay. I don't see why George would even want to have anything to do with them.
That's my point. He has already unshackled himself from this thing that he initially saw as a burden for years anyway.
Sure.
And then when he finally did step back into the pond, what happened? He got eaten by a bunch of piranhas at the end of the day, really, if you think about it. I'm being one of those piranhas, and I'm sure maybe somebody else or two on this panel.
Oh,
but
you're talking about us piranhas, not the KK piranhas.
No, I'm talking about with the prequels. And then so after the prequels, the guy was like, okay, I've had enough of this crap.
Right.
He's been wanting to sell it for the last 20, 30 years anyway. Because you could find interviews way back when he was first doing the Star Tours thing with Disney, where he even talks about contemplating selling Star Wars, maybe not Lucasfilm, but Star Wars to Disney. And that also came up again with the prequels when he was really bouncing back and forth between who was going to distribute the prequels, because those were independent features. And he went with Fox at the end of the day because they gave him back a bunch of his rights for the original Star Wars. Otherwise, he was going to go with Disney because they were going to sweeten his deal with Star Tours.
Because he had a great deal with them through the family channel for Indiana Jones.
And that too. Yeah, well, that was where Bob says it in his book, and it's true that Bob was one of his champions over there that kept Indiana Jones Chronicles going, even though it was losing money.
The other part too is that if theoretically George were to buy it back, he would still be stuck with a distribution deal to Disney, because Disney has ostensibly done a bunch of very detailed oriented and expensive contracts that George probably wouldn't want to risk breaking and paying more in addition to whatever he'd have to pay to get Star Wars back, if that were the case. It's a very fascinating subject to look at, because it's not out of the purview for Disney to do something like this, because they have done it before. The problem is that in the situations before, there was less of a dependency between that IP and what Disney is, whereas now Star Wars is very interwoven and independent. It is literally one of the standing legs of their streaming series, which means that if George Lucas were to buy it back, he would have to distribute all of his stuff to Disney Plus for however long the contract was made under Lucasfilm, unless he wants to break that, which could have severe financial penalties that would actually make it not a lucrative repurchase for him. And then also on top of that, he would then have to renegotiate a deal with regards to the Disney Parks property that has Star Wars stuff there as well, because he would have to get a licensing. He'd have to get paid for the licensing of that, but at the same time also invest into that. It's a little litigation nightmare that definitely could be unwound, but it would take a very long time and a lot of
probably
money.
Die by the time it got unwound. Sorry to say.
And also, there's like one other aspect to this.
Being sarcastic, but still. Go ahead, Andre.
And that is that the Saban and Power Rangers thing, that was very low profile. Most people had no idea that Disney ever had anything to do with Power Rangers in the first place. The only ones that even noticed or picked up on it were basically people like us and you guys watching this right now. We were aware. But the public at large, they weren't aware. The industry didn't care because it was too low profile to care about. But Star Wars, which as Script said, is something that Disney has built so much around, Disney Plus, everything like that. If they were to sell that back and admit that failure for what, $3 billion or something like that?
Yeah.
I mean, the loss of prestige would be valued as more than what they would get from selling it back to George Lucas.
Well, they would actually weather that because they've done it before. I mean, the industry, when Eisner bought Power Rangers and Fox Kids and all that stuff, many years ago, 2001, people thought it was a good idea at first, and then when some of those titles went on to like Disney XD and all those channels, that's where people went to go watch it. They saw that Disney didn't actually know how to handle these types of IPs that they had purchased and are trying to create more content of. And for the first time in its entire existence, the Power Rangers was actually canceled. And then after that cancellation, that's when they offloaded it, and Saban saw means to get profit back from it. And that is when And that was actually the year before Disney purchased, or the year of that Disney purchased Marvel, and then the year before Disney purchased Lucasfilm. And when both of those offers were met, anyone with a brain in the industry was like, wow, Disney's going to ruin those. And it's probably going to take 10 years for them to do it, just like they did with Power Rangers, because Power Rangers was huge. It dominated the 90s for the boys market. And was just, it was basically like printing money because it was so cheap to make. And it ended up having a negative impact on the Sentai stuff they were adapting, because then Sentai was leaning into that market more as opposed to its traditional origins of what it was doing, which was like essentially like a 4-quadrant show over there. It became more silly, more childish, more dependent on CG effects as opposed to the practical kaiju type of mimicking they were doing. It just really went off the rails once Disney got a hold of it and then steered it in that direction. And it hasn't actually bounced back to the popularity it was since. And that could be the same thing for Lucasfilm if George Lucas were to take over control of the property again. It might not actually recover in that time. It might take many years after George Lucas has passed away for that to bounce back.
And also, can it ever bounce back? Because George Lucas ain't the only one who's aging. So are the fans. Now, of course, Star Wars has, up until recently, been a generation of fans, or been like a generational thing. So you have fans of multiple generations. But still, some of those fans, I don't think are coming back, as you said, no matter what happens. And by the time it does, by the time the younger ones of the existing fans may see, oh, wow, this is different now, a whole generation of older fans will be gone, like Lucas.
Yeah, I mean, the one metric that you could probably say, and it's a theoretical one, which is that if someone were to make a new Flash Gordon movie and it blew people away, it would revive the Flash Gordon IP in a manner that it hadn't seen since its debut. Because unfortunately, in the 80s, even though I really loved that Flash Gordon film, it didn't spawn a huge change in the market for Flash Gordon merchandise and content. But there's always a chance it could. And just because it's generations apart doesn't mean it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm not going to get into the weeds too deep into that part of it, but like at the end of the day, there's more of a chance they'll sell Lucasfilm as part of Disney than they would ever sell it probably as pieced off or anything else pieced off at this point. They'd probably sell out as a whole. Like where we've talked about where Warner Brothers has changed hands how many times in the last, couple decades here, for instance. Disney's the only one that hasn't been passed around like, some cheap street hustler, basically, for lack of a better term at this point in Hollywood. And Universal's the only one who kind of seemed to have found a home at Comcast and hasn't moved around too much either. But otherwise, Sony would be the other example. The rest of the company's been bouncing back and forth, remerging, demerging, being bought up by this conglomerate, that conglomerate, just between, Warner in the last few years between AT&T and Discovery, that's twice alone, basically, even though AT&T is still part of the mix. But at the end of the day, I don't see them selling Star Wars or Lucasfilm off for any reason whatsoever, because there's tons of other things they would do to try and make money if they needed to make money quick than sell Lucasfilm, because that's one of their hottest commodities they've got. And going into the future, they're not going to have all these copyrights either, so keep that in mind. They're going to be losing a lot of their main characters that they are well known for most of their lifetime. So that's something they got to keep in mind. So they're going to need things like Star Wars that are going to be brands that will be alive for at least the next 60, 70 years. So, but anyway, thank you so much, Walt, man. We got Blackest Night for who's been a member for 13 months. Thank you for that. And Valiant Renegade was also sending a member chat who says obligatory 26-month Crom member chat. Now entertain me, damn it. Well, you were on the show. Hopefully you entertained yourself. That was part of the deal with you coming on. Mr. 19 says, hey guys, just wanted to say hi and give a little support. Well, thank you, Mr. 19. 006 says, which woke studio do you predict will be the first to fall? Do all these woke induced losses? Do you see Bud Light effect for the movies? Well, Andre, we've kind of touched on this a little bit with some of our ESG videos.
There are no studios yet that have done anything as extreme as hiring that certain influencer for something as unfitting as Bud Light.
Velma was close.
Velma was close.
But it was so small in comparison to.
I know, you're right.
That's the
thing. There's
thing.
technically not a woke studio in existence. They're just doing minor woke things, but they're having a huge impact with regards to the audience. That's big.
Disney's probably the closest to a woke studio.
Yes, that's as close as you can get. Yes.
But as far as like we're already seeing some of these studios make decisions to go away from a lot of this, or it sounds like in the case of some movies, just putting in enough to make sure they get that credit score up there with ESG, but not enough to actually affect the film overall. We've seen a few films that have benefited from that. But
is there a PDF list, like an official list of ESG requirements just for the screenwriting process?
That's a good question.
Like, not the speculative stuff that the chat's going to say, like, strong female women has to beat up guys. Like, that's BS stuff. I don't want that. I want the legit what qualifies for ESG points.
I have heard something to that end.
Yeah, if it's out there, I would love it, because maybe I could do a little series on my channel where I try to see if I can make a good movie using those points.
I bet you we kind of have an idea with the Oscar stuff. But go ahead, Andre.
But anyway, there is a list, and it's not given to the writers. No. This is something, from what I understand, there is a list of things that are required and things that are wanted. Basically, like, this is the minimum you have to do. This is what you should do, and we'll be really happy if you do this. So you have like a multiple tier list like this, but this is not given to the writers directly.
I know that.
What the writers get are basically the requirements going in. These are the parameters. And then what the studio have decided that we are going to do this, and this of this list, which we are not showing the writers because this is under lock and key and just for our one more time, for our eyes only. But we will give parameters, and the parameters will be derived from what are in the lists that comes from their Black Rocks and stuff. That's my understanding.
Well, if anyone out there has those parameters or any details of the list, my DMs are open. I would like it to be an official memorandum copy, not a speculative one. And I will take on that challenge. I think that'll be fun for everybody.
But as Tom was alluding to, we have like Amazon. They have been public about their requirements. The Oscars have been public about their requirements, and the requirements that Amazon and that the Oscars have are very, very, very similar to each other, which tells me that both of them come from a third higher place.
Yeah. Well, one thing I have noted is that most of the requirements, at least on the Oscar side of things, has to do with the people hired to work, not what they're making. And that's what I want. I want what they're making stuff, not what they're working, who needs to be hired to work stuff. Yeah. Because I have no control over that as a screenwriter. And I want to make something, I want to see what I can reconcile with the parameters of the story. Because if I could, I mean, I don't think I will be able to, but if I could write a really great story that has those things they want, then the potential means that it's there. And it's just the fact that you're not getting the quality of people working on it to make it work for their own benefit in addition to whatever this ESG parameters are.
Yeah, if I'd really be willing to take a guess, it would be that you guys probably don't get those kind of requirements. Your requirements are coming in from, like, say, writer's room requirements, having X amount of people in the writer's room that are, a certain race or LGBTQ or what have you, that kind of a thing. I don't think they're going to tell guys
there's
creative side what to do.
Yeah, there's no creative side requirements, and that's one of the things that I'm curious about, because if there are creative side requirements, that could be explored.
Now, on that note, though, just going by that, I will say this: I bet you $5 you got a better chance of getting a meeting if you say, "I've got a story here about a brave and stunning trans woman superhero," than if you just said, "I got a script here about a superhero." That being said, again, I agree with you. I don't think there's any requirements being set upon the writers. But now when it comes to writer's room or the type of writers that they're choosing for rewriting gigs and stuff like that,
that's a different story, because the manifestos that all these people that have come out, like JJ and like Andrea said, the requirements Amazon has said, and I'm even willing to bet that the Oscar requirements are cut and paste from these same kind of things that they've gotten, to where it's all, like you said, behind the camera, in front of the camera. When it comes to the creative side of things, they're leaving that open because they won't dare do that, because then they'll be accused of exactly what they're doing. And yeah,
Possibly,
so yeah. But it sounds like you know exactly what I'm talking about. So hopefully you can find that, or somebody can uncover that for you. But I got a feeling you're gonna have a hard time with that.
I think that's probably going to be the case. Yeah.
Yeah. But if anyone has a list they're willing to share with us, then by all means.
Please do. Doug 1985 says, anybody remember Iman from Star Trek 6? Sexy. I'm trying to remember Iman. Which one was that?
Was she the daughter or the changeling?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Like, while we're trying to remember that, we'll move on here. Bye Bye Hollywood Land says, I gotta get my thing on here. Hang on. Where's my button? Oh, there it is. My name is Optimus Prime. I need a reboot again. So, yeah, there you go. Well, you got one. You just got a reboot. Tipping Barnes says, panel, your boy Zach seems to be pushing back strongly on the whole ESG thing and doesn't seem to think there's enough evidence for such a thing. And it's a whole lot of misinformation. Thoughts? Sure, if he wants to believe that, he can.
Yeah, that's... I haven't watched his videos for a long time. Yeah. Not for any other reason. He just stopped showing up in my recommended feeds. If he's pushing back against it and he wants more proof, that's his privilege. That's his privilege to request more proof. So if he wants to ask for that, then ask for that. And if he wants to ignore the evidence in front of his eyes, then by all means. I'm not gonna...
I think the fact that certain people have picked up on it, and I have already been willing to bet that sooner or later one of these videos are going to start getting suppressed. So I think that'll say a lot. But I think there's more than enough proof out there that this shit is true. They talk about it all the time.
And they started doing so much more after I think, because one of the reasons why I did is because I saw more chatter about it, but I saw it explode after our video, which now has going on 700,000 views. After that is when I started seeing a bunch of breakdowns, many of which were quite similar to ours, using like some of the same phrasings and stuff.
Well, some were nice enough to even call back to our video, in fact.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, which was most
because the guy's name I keep forgive me, I keep forgetting his name. I shared the thing with you. He keeps citing our video as as one of the best breakdowns of how this works for people who wouldn't possibly understand this, or could be, bamboozled by somebody in a corporate setting to be, oh, that's not how it works. It works like this. But no. He said our version of it is the best explanation out there. What was his name again, Andre? I can't remember now.
James Lindsay.
James Lindsay. Thank you so much.
James Lindsay. He even did a great podcast over at New Discourses, published 4 days ago. I'll see if I can put the link in the description.
Yeah, I got a chance to listen to most of it.
Where he goes through much more details about it, and he goes hard in a way that I wouldn't feel comfortable doing on Midnight's Edge, but I don't disagree with his analysis, and it's well worth checking out. So after this, go and head on over to New Discourses YouTube channel and check out Why Bud Light and Target Are Pushing the Woke Agenda by James Lindsay, who's graciously has been promoting us a lot on Twitter and everywhere else. So your boy Zach, he may disagree, but I see a lot of people not disagreeing at all. On the contrary, saying, this is how we know it to be, and thanks for just putting it so eloquently. That's most of the feedback I'm getting, including from people who are in the position to know, who basically say, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, that's the scarier part, is nobody's denying it. Right? Right? Like, that's the thing. And I mean, it needs to be called out. Maybe that's where hope is on the horizon, but I doubt it. I have a feeling we're going to be, like I said, we're going to be... Checkpoint
Charlie has already been installed. That's the scary point. It's like it's too late for warnings. It's already happened. It's already here. Checkpoint Charlie is already there. It was installed right under our noses the whole time.
All we can hope for is what I was going to say is that the corporations themselves might finally go, well, this is enough. We can't, and I'll get together, because that's the only way it's going to change.
It's going to take more than that. It'll start with that, but it's also going to take congressional hearings and what have you, because this is
that's true.
This is deeply rooted. This was built over a very, very long time by very influential
well, and we got more to say about it and more videos coming.
Update video is coming. I'm almost done writing it, so update is coming.
In fact, we have one that'll kind of pertain to one of the super chats we got earlier about the woke studios and how this is going, and where we've seen this before and other things. So it's coming. It's all, we're working on it. So hopefully they don't suppress us before those come out. Bye Bye Hollywood says, does Indy flopping so hard expedite KK's exit? Again, I don't know. It might, but at the same time, she is going to leave on her own terms whenever that is. I'm not going to entertain any kind of time frame on it.
Nope, we should not.
No time frame, but how many billions upon billions can one person burn up before
they have been predicting?
Have enough?
Sorry, Andrew, didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, no, that's all right.
They have been predicting her demise for so long that I stopped listening to the people predicting her demise.
Yeah, basically people going wolf. But here's like the thing: a normal executive would have been fired 1,000 times over,
which is the mystery.
In the time span that she has been there, and I kid you not. I mean, we are talking. She would have been fired. She should have been fired every single day between now and The Last Jedi.
Yes, and no. But there's a normal executive is someone who just came out of business school, is in their 20s still. She's been in the industry for 40 plus years. She's made most of the industry probably that's still working today in the very powerful positions.
That too added into there's an example of somebody who is an anomaly to this whole thing. And we can't get deep into this right now because I don't have a subscription to this the New York Times, nor would I. But they brought up this story recently about Sean Bailey. Are you guys familiar with who this individual is?
Nope. I do not know who Sean Bailey is.
Sean Bailey.
Sean. Is it S-E-A-N?
S-E-A-N.
Okay.
B-A-I-L-E-I. He has been part of, and I'll show you on screen because it won't even let me show the picture. It's that bad. Like, that's how bad it is.
He's the Solace guy, I think, right?
Okay, so this is the guy who's been in charge of all the live action remakes at Disney.
He's very short.
He's a white man, first of all. Second of all, you know what else he's been a part of? And that when his first big project was at Disney, and I can't believe he's still at Disney, going against what you were just talking about, Andre. Take a wild guess what his first movie was he produced there.
There are so many to choose from.
Go back to one of the worst times in Disney's history prior to this. Pick one of the worst bombs they've had.
John Carter. Mars
Close. I think he was part of that, but he also worked on The Lone fucking Ranger. You tell me how the motherfucker who worked on The Lone Ranger is still working in Hollywood. Like, if you're the producer that gave the green light to that, how do you still have a job? That was one of the biggest snafus in the history of Hollywood.
Yeah, but it wasn't thought of as a snafu when they first started. You have to stop making the assumption that they purposely made something to fail.
No. But Paul, after that movie lost $300 million at the box office, he should have had a pink slip hanging on his door.
But now he's someone who has experienced a $300 million loss, so now he knows what not to do next time. That's called experience.
It took him like 5 years to figure that out.
But also, I don't think he's legitimately credited with that film.
He brings it up in this article I just showed. I wish I could read it to tell you, because he talks about how that was his first failure and that the studio stuck with him, going with you guys, what you guys are saying. Well, and I think he also brought up John Carter as well.
Well, one of the aspects of Hollywood is that if you can keep going after a failure, you're actually considered valuable, because it is assumed that you learn from that failure and you don't repeat the mistake. And from his career track record, doesn't look like he's lost another $300 million specifically on a single film since then. The whatever the loss is, it's been less than that, which means that he's getting better.
Well, yeah, because he's behind all these stupid reboots, the live action reboots. That's why.
Yeah, John Carter was a disappointment. Yeah, well,
yeah, that's fantastic, Sean. You only lost $50 million this time. Getting better. Maybe you can get the loss down to $20 million next time. Maybe in 10 years you'll actually be profitable.
That is literally a mindset in Hollywood.
My point was
as long as you're not losing more, and every subsequent film, you're getting better. In which case, they will keep you around.
Well, because they know films will fail any number of reasons. You could have the perfect film, and then it just for whatever reason doesn't touch the marketplace. Hollywood is fairly understanding about that fact, and you can have the dumbest film in the world, and we talked about Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure that was kept in the studio shelves for a year because, for one reason, the execs hated it and didn't know what it was going to do and whether it was going to succeed or not. They didn't get it. So, there's no accounting for taste.
Yeah.
No, but there's failure, and then there's the Lone Ranger.
And the Lone Ranger was terrible on multiple fronts, and including the fact that Depp had some claim to being indigenous when he was or he wasn't, or he was 1/1000th indigenous, or it started off on a very bad footing, and that character was the dumbest ass.
Well, and the budget was way too high for a movie that was a big gamble.
Yeah, big gamble, and he was wearing an ornament. Why did they let him wear an ornament on his head?
That's Johnny Depp's own makeup team.
That's Johnny Depp's thing. Yeah,
with him all the time. But that's just how it is. It's the thing is that it's not necessarily failing upwards. It's that they're not failing as bad, which means that they're getting better, and that's the perspective. I mean, failing upwards is that you constantly are getting worse, yet you're still getting promoted. Like that doesn't happen as often in Hollywood unless you have some very intimate network connections.
Yeah, and don't forget, someone who can work on a movie of that budget, there's not very many of those people in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they're trusted. They go, well, you know what? You've touched $200 million and stuck it into a film.
I thought that conversation was going way somewhere else.
Anyway.
Well, you touch $200 million. Now you can touch anyone you want. That's what I thought they were going to tell him. But you said you're leaving here, so we got a couple more super chats for you. Jex Refi says, to Paul's talent point, does SAG need to be weeded out of talent like Script et al. Have mentioned with the WRT, the WGA get rid of the woke? Was a writer's strike or something there? I don't know. Yeah.
Talent has no bearing on that part. Like that's a talent. Like talent just goes to set and does what's on the page. They don't care unless they're a producer that actually has some direction or impact, or a director as well, a hyphenate. They have no. You weed them out by the normal casting process. That's basically it. And the casting process is dictated by what the studio wants. So if the studio doesn't want woke, then they're not going to hire woke. But if the studio wants woke, that's what they're going to get. That's how it works. Same thing with screenwriting. But now if the studios are saying, oh man, we've made these deals with these woke writers that we know are not going to work. Well, now we can do force majeure if the strike goes on too long and get rid of those deals and not have to worry about it anymore, which means they're not beholden to that contract.
At least the expensive ones.
At least the expensive ones, yeah. Actors don't have the same type of conditions.
No. Unless they've got one of those long-term script deals.
Yeah, like if they have their own little private production house where they look for scripts and they make deals with studios like Will Ferrell did for quite a while, and Robert Downey Jr. does with Team Downey, then that's a harder deal to get out of. But again, there are still ways to circumvent that.
There you go. And even though that was to Paul's talent point.
No, but that was script.
He's the one who knows all the answers. Script. But that's all for you, Paul. So if you want to get the hell out of here.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. We'll say it's Friday, so have a wonderful weekend.
You too.
No American holiday.
No, not this weekend. June is the only month that the only holiday we technically have is Father's Day, but it's Pride Month. So it's a fabulous holiday all month.
That's
Holiday.
It's Cis Father's Day.
It would be so nice.
Talk to everyone later. Andre, enjoy.
Oh yeah, we mustn't forget about Juneteenth. I apologize.
And
oh yeah,
enjoy.
that's just been added as a holiday for the DGA. If they work Juneteenth, they get overtime.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Awesome. Oh well. Paul, thanks for being here. Been lovely having you this week as well, and look forward to seeing you again on Monday.
Talk to you later.
Yeah,
bye.
Have
a good weekend.
Bye.
Take care. All right, moving right along. Dark Saber Force says my biggest wish for the movie was
Dark Saber Force just for $5.
My biggest wish not coming through.
No, you were not coming through. Yeah, that's why I was coming through. My biggest wish for the movie was that they had cast Gary Chalk as Optimus Primo from Beast Wars cartoon, the 2002 Armada/Energon anime Optimus Prime. You got Ron Perlman instead.
and right there's a perfect example of why we got Chris Pratt playing Mario, and other times where it's just head scratching because the studios want a name to slap on the poster instead of nobody knows who Gary Chalk is but us.
Yeah, he's part of the He-Man, two He-Man series, I believe.
Yeah, two.
Yeah.
Was that Cam Clark?
Cam Clark, well, he might have been too, though. I'd have to look now that I think.
Well, I know he was the voice of He-Man in the early '90s one, I think, and then
that's
he was
what
the
I was
voice of
say.
Man at Arms in the 2002.
That's what I was thinking. Yes, thank you, script.
Yeah, I thought that was Cam Clark, but I guess it
no.
was Gary Chalk. Oh yeah, Cam Clark was the He-Man in the 2002, and Gary Chalk. Yes, script. You're right. Yeah.
You didn't play He-Man in both of them. You just played two different characters in both series. Yeah.
Correct.
Exactly.
There's one other actor too, and I can't remember. It's like whoever did, I think, Whiplash in the newer one, and was also a voice in one of the old, in either the Filmation or the other series. But you know what? It doesn't really matter here. But yes, Dark Saber Force. I agree with you. It makes more sense to do this, and they used to do these kind of things more often. But it has to do with studio mandates, getting names slapped on posters. The quickest story I can tell that is one of the dumbest versions of this was the original Chipmunks movie they had a few years back here, when through most of post-production, I think even the first few screenings, the voices of the Chipmunks were done by the same people who had done the voices for the last 15 years or more at that point, actually more, basically. And they decided that the last damn minute, they wanted some names to slap on the poster. So they had Justin Long and one of the Teeny Bop Boys and somebody else come in at the last minute to do voices for it. And you can't tell it's Justin Long because he spends the whole
movie sounding like this. So what difference does it make who's doing the voice?
Well, the other part too is it also goes down to marketing and banks.
Exactly my point.
They want to guarantee their investment, and they do that through name recognition.
Yeah, so in this case, Ron Perlman was part of the process way early on. Justin Long, in that case, was later in the process. But at that point, it was the studio was like getting cold feet. They're like, we need something to slap on this poster other than Jason Lee, because they were afraid the Chipmunks weren't a hot enough commodity anymore. But anyway, moving on, the film did well, so it doesn't matter at the end of the day. We got 4 more sequels after that, wasn't it? Or at least 3 more. Mexican Iron Man says, I subscribed to Flip City. That's right. Please subscribe to Flip City if you haven't already. That reminds me, we should probably run that ad again.
Yeah, let's do so.
Let's do that now. Check out Flip City. Friends, if you're looking for real old school laughs, you're in for a treat because we've got them right here. Flip City Magazine. Remember Mad Magazine? Then it went woke? Wow, don't worry. Flip City has no chance of going woke. That's right. 4 times a year, you'll get an actual printed magazine full of jokes, stories, comics, and more, all about today's pop culture, entertainment, and woke politics. Flip City takes terrible entertainment trends we love to hate with hilarious parodies of Lord of the Rings, Stranger Things, The Walking Dead, Star Trek, Hunters, and more. Trust me when I say there is nothing else like Flip City on the market. So subscribe today. It will be delivered in print, or you can even get it digitally if you're one of those wacky Zoomers. Either way, follow our link and sign up today, and if you put in midnight, you get an extra 10% off. Check out Flip City Magazine today. That's right. Check out Flip City, and thank you so much to Flip City for sponsoring us here at Midnight's Edge. Dark Saber Force says, oh, we got this one already. Thank you, Dark Saber Force. I appreciate that. And then we got another one from Mikey. It says, dang it, Bob. Hashtag dang it, Bob. That's right. He's been hashtag dang it, bobbing it on Twitter for a while now. So check out his tweets. Bye Bye Hollywood says, VR and panel, is Iger a dead man walking? You know, it's a good question.
His legacy
Andre,
certainly is.
You're a corporate man, sort of. What's your take on this?
I think that many of those that were so happy that Daddy Iger was returning, although no one is going to say it, or very few will say it out loud, behind closed doors, more and more are going to admit that Bob Iger is really the architect of Disney's problems and he can't fix them. That's what I think.
Mm-hmm.
And in time, as time goes by, this is what he's going to be more remembered for. Just like Michael Eisner is arguably more remembered for the problems of his latter years than the good years that he had early on. I think the same thing is going to be true of Iger's legacy. He's going to be the one that overspent and ultimately screwed the company and left someone else with a real pickle to fix it all. He's trying, but I don't think that he can do it, and more people are coming around to see that. That's what I think. Script?
I don't think any differently. I think that's he's destroyed his legacy, and he won't live that down, but he will live comfortably for the rest of his years.
Oh, that he will. Oh, absolutely. I mean, he's hyper rich.
I don't think he needs to worry about calling Susan Sarandon anytime soon.
Yeah, no.
He's fine. That's a deep cut. That's that Sean Penn movie. Dead Man one. Anyway, moving on. No, I agree with Andre's take on this. Doug1985 also sent in a member chat and says, "Is Hookah Lounge FNT is a rock concert?"
No,
and
Midnight's Edge and Mead is a hookah lounge.
Okay, I thought that was part of the thing. My bad. Yeah, I guess you're about right. We always kind of went for a bar hookah lounge atmosphere, I guess. Yeah. Ethan Man Skyver streams are really like a really good Lynch film for me. Enjoy all y'all guys. You know what's really funny is David Lynch has his own YouTube channel. If you haven't checked it out, Doug 1985, it's hilarious.
I don't think he's posted in a while though.
Oh, that's sad. You know, you're right, because I haven't noticed it, because he used to post every single day. He'd post the weather and the number of the day. I don't know the significance of the number of the day. He would just give you the number of the day. He'd be like, it's mostly cloudy and 72, and the number of the day is 12. It's like, okay. I get that. No, Andre, I think you always said that. You wanted it to kind of be like a bar or a whiskey lounge or whatever you'd want to call it.
Yeah, that was always one of the things I wanted.
The live shows, I mean,
yeah. That's what I want. Of course, it didn't necessarily end up that way, but that's the vision that I
don't know. Depends on what bar you're going to.
Ah, that's true.
It's kind of a mix of a lot of bars. I mean, they get rowdy around here, so
yeah.
I don't know how they are in Norway.
Oh, that depends on the bar, as you say.
Yeah. And then Ben Dowdy has been a member for 8 months. Thank you much. Matthew W has been a member for 19 months and says the access media finally started seeing Iger and his cronies are the problem, not the solution. Well, it's not looking good in the press every day for Disney. It seems like I swear Bob probably has a headache every day he wakes up because he can't imagine what he's going to walk into today.
Probably because right now it's just like one disaster after the other.
And I mean, with the way these movies are shaping up, I mean, let's be real, kids. Like, of all the things that have happened this year, if Indiana Jones really does open up to that low of a box office, that's like red alert. Like, we are in trouble here because they have not had a hit all year outside of Guardians of the Galaxy, and that's barely.
And again, that's not really a hit. That'll be lucky to break even.
Exactly.
And that's the clue. And I said before, like I started with the ESG video actually saying that Guardians, by the time 2023 is at an end, Guardians of the Galaxy will probably be their biggest movie because it broke even. whereas all their others lost a fortune. I stand by that assessment.
Indeed.
I still think, yeah.
And then we got Jesus Davila, who sends us a super sticker. I'm willing to bet it's a thumbs up. If you haven't hit that thumbs up yet, please do. In fact, we've got 800 thumbs up, and we have over 1,000 of you watching. In fact, over 1,500 of you watching. If we can get that over 1,000, I'll make sure Sadie gets a treat. So please do that. Yeah, we got Vincent here. Yeah. Speaking of puppies, there's a puppy right there. Vincent says, compared to the period between the prequels and The Force Awakens, way more franchises were run into the ground between Crystal Skull and now.
Unfortunately, yes, pretty much every franchise that has been active has been run into the ground in the last few years.
The thing that Star Wars,
the
thing Star Wars had between the prequels and Force Awakens that Indiana Jones didn't really have is a lot of extended universe stuff. Like you had the Clone Wars cartoon, you had whatever comics and books were ongoing, video games. Sure, Indy would get an occasional video game, but not nearly to the extent of Star Wars. And there's two sides to that, because that's the thing we were saying earlier. You were saying specifically, Andre, is that none of the younger crowd is really into Indiana Jones. It's not their bag. And a lot of the older crowd, I mean, it's we're going to see how much of that crowd was turned off by Crystal Skull now, because frankly, they're the only ones who seem to be interested in this film, and interest doesn't seem to really be there.
Doesn't seem very high, no. It really doesn't.
So yeah, let's keep moving along, but thank you so much, Vincent. Tommy Reviews sends in 10 and says, I'm biased when it comes to Transformers 2. What the hell was that one called again? I don't remember.
Rise of the Fallen? Was that it?
Yes, that's it. The beginning of the movie in Shanghai was filmed near me in Bethlehem, PA?
Pennsylvania.
Yeah. I was just trying to think, how would they film Shanghai in Pennsylvania? Like trying to wrap my head around that, but okay. I skipped school for the week just to watch them film. So yeah, okay. Wow. So they didn't even go to Shanghai to shoot it.
No, they went there later. They went there with like the Mark Wahlberg movies. That's when the Chinese funding was really a thing, right? Whereas up until then, it was cheaper to film locally in, for instance, Pennsylvania. If you have like some, and it doesn't actually have to look like Shanghai. It only has to look like something that the audience will accept as Shanghai. You probably can't do that in Pennsylvania, then, I guess.
Well, my point is if they're really trying to appeal to people over there, wouldn't you really want to shoot it there, because they can tell?
That's what they did later on.
Yeah,
that's that's from the Mark Wahlberg movies onwards.
Yeah. Mobile Crusader says the most insulting thing I've ever been told was that I reminded my aunt of the main guy in Juno. I'm reminded my aunt.
That's yeah. But basically, his aunt told him, you remind me of that guy in Juno, dear nephew. To which the nephew says, "Oh, really? That's bad."
Every character in that movie is sad.
Actually, except for J.K. Simmons.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And Ram Bam, she'll hold me to it whether I say it or not. Sadie is all about the treats. So she never lets me forget about the cheese tax either. It's a very important business. But thank you, Mobile Crusader, for that. And then we got Truck Driving Gamer, who says, the one exception to blockbuster fatigue was Top Gun Maverick. I waited 6 weeks to see that Tuesday afternoon matinee. Legitimate sold out.
In a full theater.
I think, yeah, in a full theater. Reminded me of the 80s. Well, that didn't have like the biggest opening. I mean, it did well, but I think what Top Gun had was huge word of mouth. Like word of mouth went around, because they even tried to pull a Rambo Last Blood on Top Gun. We did a video about that, but that didn't hold very well. I don't know if Andre remembers what I'm referring to, but where they tried to tear that movie down right away is, well, it's propaganda for the right and why you should avoid it. But that didn't hold any water, so they just let that go. But no, it was kind of an anomaly. But at the same time, notice that the few of these blockbuster 80s movies that have had revivals, the one thing in common that works for the ones that work
are the ones that let the legacy characters shine, or at least have their moments and don't tear them down.
They also contribute to the newer characters as well. That's the other part.
Yeah. So like you have your Cobra Kai, you have Ghostbusters Afterlife, Top Gun Maverick, you have a couple other ones I'm sure that I'm not thinking of offhand, but those have been the exceptions to the rule, because otherwise you're right, like Star Wars and all the rest of them. Even though the first
all of them have younger point of view characters.
Yeah.
Like the Crystal Skull tried this, but it chose Shia LaBeouf, so it had the wrong point of view character.
Oh yeah.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Sorry, I'm dealing with a cat here. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, that's all right. That with animal stuff like that happens. But I can move on here. Meanwhile, if Kitty is being a nightmare, Truck Driving Gamer says for $10. The one exception to blockbuster fatigue was Top Gun Maverick. I waited 6 weeks to see that. Tuesday afternoon matinee, legitimate sold out.
We just read this, but yeah.
Yeah, well,
that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But thank you, Truck Driving Gamer. Sorry about that. The cat was like in my mouth, like trying to kiss me. He wants his breakfast. Jex Ref, he says inflation won't let people waste $100 at theaters.
Are you kidding? $100 at the theaters was what it was for a family of four before inflation.
And I still say, and I get where Jex is coming from, because it is not cheap to take a family to the theaters, but at the same time, it is one of the cheapest things to do. Even it's cheaper than going to some restaurants now.
Okay, let's just be honest here. It's not cheaper. Everything else is more expensive, is the term you're looking for.
There you go. Okay. But at the end of the day, my point is, and still I'll stand by, going to the movies is still one of the most affordable things a family can do. Compared to going to a concert, going to a theme park, going to a sporting event, anything else will cost you astronomically more. So it's one of the few things that just about every family can still afford to do as a family. Even going like mini golf and shit can be more expensive than going to the movies. So there you go. But at the same time, people are going to worry more about the money they spend. And a lot more people are going to wait for the movie just to hit video on demand and just buy the movie on demand instead.
Yeah. And streaming has only made that situation worse.
Yeah, and I'm sure Mario did gangbusters on demand, and it came out on video yesterday, and it was pretty much selling out everywhere.
More importantly, it did bang gangbusters in the theaters, because everyone had to go out and see it. And then, of course, everything else is just kind of like sweetening the deal afterwards.
And moving on from there, we've got Paulus Plain, who says you can make a Juno 2 for obvious, or you cannot make a Juno 2 for obvious reasons. Modern times. Thank you all. Me. I don't know. You could maybe make a Juno 2, but it would be just as horrible or worse than the original. It'd just be about the daughter.
Make a mistake and solve it again. Now she's married. Yeah. It's like, I'm giving the kid up for adoption.
No, only it'd be about the kid of Juno 1, because it's been that long now that kid would be almost as old as what Ellen Page was playing in the first movie.
You could have like the generational sin or something. Do like a remake without knowing the origin. It's also where only the audience knows.
Yes. That'd be hilarious. Not. Rico Zorro has been a member for 18 months at the Midnight level. Thank you so much. Destiny Captain is in house. Good to see you. It's been a while. Wrath of Khan, 12 to 14 million. Tiny budget for then and now. Still considered the best Star Trek film and one of the best films of 82. Well, and that kind of came out of necessity, because the first film did well, but they're like, yeah, we cannot be spending this much money. I can't remember what the budget for the first film was. It like $40 million, I think, somewhere in that region.
It was rolled over from phase 2 and a whole bunch of other stuff,
there's all that kind of business, but they're like, yeah, we can't spend that kind of money on these things. And of course, Wrath of Khan was much cheaper, much more tightly.
They reused a lot of effects from the first film in this one.
That too. Yep. The sets, a lot of the costumes, all that stuff. The way the movie is set up and written, it doesn't require as
brand
much
new costumes, but they they had to reuse all the Starship stuff. They had to build the Reliant, and then they just composited new shots between the Reliant and the Enterprise in for 2 set piece scenes, and that was all they could afford to do. Everything else was reused pretty much from the first film.
Yeah. Isn't that another reason why the Klingons keep using the birds of prey and stuff too, so they can keep using
It's the reason why it's the Klingons that are cloaked in the Kobayashi Maru instead of the Romulans.
Yeah, that's it. I was gonna say, but yes, thank you. But yeah, no, you can do it. It just, the bigger problem, I think we've covered a lot of it, so we're not gonna get too deep into it. But yeah, they gotta work on the amount that they're spending on certain actors, and they need to get actors who are actually gonna get butts in the seats, at the same time of keeping like the cost of all those special effects and other business down. And a great example was Andre was talking about how the Pope's Exorcist was ruined by this extravagant special effects filled ending. And the movie didn't cost all that much and it made a lot of money, but he thinks it could have been better if it was more constrained.
Yeah, I stand by that. The movie suffered from too high a budget, which is a terrible thing for a movie to suffer under, but still some movies do.
Yep. And sometimes the constraints are the mother invention.
Exactly.
Justin B says, with the reveal of the Ghostbusters logo being covered in ice, what are the odds that the next film is about climate change? Yeah, we talked a little bit about the logo last night, but we didn't get to this point, but I'm not surprised.
I wouldn't know how that correlates because the Afterlife
but
wasn't about anything environmental.
No, but he could be right, but we'll have to wait and see. I'm hoping not.
I don't even get.
But here's
how
the logo.
Yeah,
I'm hoping it has more to do with hell freezing over. That was my first thought.
Probably. I mean, maybe it's going to be a more winter heavily Ghostbusters, just the way that Ghostbuster 2 was. I mean, it took place around Christmas and New Year's Eve. That's a winter season in the Northeast. Maybe an Afterlife took place in the summer, so maybe they're just saying, yeah, we're going to do a winter one now.
Yeah, that, or I just have a feeling that the main villain will have something to do with ice. Yeah. But if it has to do with him freezing the whole world, we'll see. But I'm not, again, when it comes to the ESG stuff, the environmental stuff is the stuff I give the least care about, because most of the time it's either so ridiculous, like Waterworld, that it just, or Armageddon and shit like that.
It's gonna take a different form now, because then it was like save the environment. Now it's gonna take the form of you have to stop traveling and you have to stop eating meat. That's the form it's going to take.
If they start doing that, I understand what you're saying, and then I'll have a problem with it.
Yeah.
The other thing I can see is as a side note to that is it's all going to be caused by some white man. That's why. And we do have Walter Peck in this movie, so there's
your white man to blame.
Well, no, not our white man to blame, but he'll be the white man to point out the remember where he comes from. He comes from the EPA.
Yeah.
The Environmental Protection Agency.
And he was incidentally right all along.
Technically, yes.
Yep.
We're not going to get into that.
It's his methods that were evil. That's the thing.
That's the thing. And we'll see what role he plays in this one. So I'm going to hold judgment on that part until we see the film, or at least a trailer. But yeah. What's your first thought? Says, hey, Tom, on that statement about movies this year flopping, I know one that did make money, Sisu, made its money back, and plus goes to show you don't have to spend $100 million to make a good movie. That's true. Wasn't that also a foreign film technically?
Finnish. It's from Finland.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only reason I really didn't bring it up before, but yeah, totally. But yeah. Pilgrim Media says Disney won't learn what comes around goes around. Yes
They'll
and
have a very
no.
difficult time. I mean, first of all, the phrase is what goes around comes around, because it's about leaving you and coming back, not coming to you and then going out. That's often mistaken. But yes, it's going to take a very long time for the people currently in charge at Disney to learn. But if they all are replaced by someone else, they probably would already have a better understanding of that lesson and would change.
And one thing Hollywood is good at is finding a way to make you pay for it. So don't ever forget that. That's one of my favorite sayings. Hyperguyver 2 says, I hope Spider-Gwen gets a repeat of her 616 counterpart again. I want to see these tourists have a meltdown. Okay. That's a little dark. But then again, that's where the whole, I'm not going to get too deep into it, but yeah, I keep being reminded that's not the other Gwen. So that's why I'm supposed to just accept her differences. Mark Lines, THB. What did we figure out that was again, Andre? Oh yeah, it's Thailand. That's right. Wow, I can finally send a super chat from Thailand. That's right. We had our first one, I think, like last week.
So trying to figure out what that was. Thank you all for the information and entertainment. So it means, evidently before you couldn't super chat from Thailand, and now you can. That's great.
Yeah, fantastic. We're glad to both have viewers in Thailand to begin with, and that you're able to send some support. We really appreciate
We know
that.
you're
So
here
thank
now.
you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome.
Ryan West says, bear in mind, George didn't sell because of the prequel hate. He sold in the intention of very much being involved before he was stabbed in the back. Ryan, well, there's a caveat to this, because here's the thing. George knew when he signed those papers, he was not going to have anything to do with Star Wars going forward. You're correct in going into the deal. He went in under the impression that they were going to come to him for consultation and story ideas and other things like that. And they were going to use his treatments. But Bob made it very clear that they weren't, or at least they weren't beholden to them. And that's where he made a deal where they bought those treatments, but they were not obligated to use them. So George knew very well going in that the possibility of whatever he had set up was not going to be used, and that this was very likely outcome. But that's where I say, at that point, I just don't know if he really cared that much. I think he had a little seller's remorse afterwards. But since then, I think he's completely moved on. That's just my take of or assessment of his reactions to things and things we've seen him say publicly since then. What do you guys think?
I think he's still making his own movies that we and the rest of the world will never ever see.
Yeah, I think he's moved on. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think that if he had the opportunity to go back in time and do things differently, he would have. But I don't think that he's ever going to make those 3 movies the way that he wanted to do them. That's not happening.
No, and at this point, outside of maybe doing like a guest writing gig or directing gig, I don't see him being involved, and even that's unlikely, highly unlikely.
They may consult with him from time to time if they want to use his name and stuff, because that's part of the contract. That if they say, "Hey, we need to use your name to come in and consult," yes, he'll do that. But don't expect any more than that. Let's say.
And I mean, people keep trying to jump to Haim Saban for this, but they're 2 totally different kind of guys.
Oh, yeah.
The way they run things. That's another thing you got to keep in mind. And I know, Script, you know more about that kind of a thing. So, yeah.
I mean, they're both businessmen, but they both have different approaches to how they put in the effort behind what they're doing. Like, Haim Saban just wanted to cobble together some really cheap productions and put it out there, kind of like Golan Golubas did. And it worked for him. And then he got rid of it because he's like, I'm going to make all my money and go do something else. Other things he didn't work as well. Definitely didn't work as well. And when he saw an opportunity to get the thing that made him billions back for a fraction of the price, he knows it'd be foolish for him not to have taken it. And he did.
Yeah.
And now he's made deals with Hasbro and other studios with regards to the property. And even though it's not as big as what it was when it first hit, he's still making money hand over fist in those deals. So he's going to keep it going. And one day someone's going to come along and reinvigorate the franchise to another new level again. I
mean, both are very shrewd businessmen, but you're exactly right. The approach that both of them have to all of this creatively, financially, and the way they look at the properties is 2 completely different things. And at the end of the day, George has other things that he's been doing for the last few years. He's gotten married. He's had more kids. He's been more involved with, like you said, his personal projects on the side. And he's been trying to get his museum going and other things. So I really don't think it's in his rearview mirror at this point.
In fact, one of the things that's kind of ironic is that for George Lucas has, with each iteration of Star Wars, made it less of a serious fantasy and more of a comedic fantasy. And for Haim Saban, he has made Power Rangers less of the comedy it was intended to be and more of a serious, gritty thing. And it's like, you guys have to switch those models because that's how you actually save your franchises, or at least would if they were both in charge of them. 100%.
There you go. And moving on from there, unless Andre has more to add. He's quiet, so I don't think so.
I got nothing. Moving on.
Okay, we got this one already. I don't have 6 today, so I got to remember to unstart these chats when we're getting done with them. Jesus Davila has gifted 1 Midnight's Edge membership. Hopefully you were the recipient of that
very generous gift of a membership from Jesus Stabila, which we got to do that this week, Andre. We got to get our member stream going here.
Yeah, we'll find the time.
Long overdue.
Yeah.
Shadow Dancer, the Red Mage, says, I have a story outlined for a trans woman with genuine hero set, a genuine hero journey set in Midwest 1850. I didn't find it too difficult. P.S. He's a hermaphrodite. Does that count though? Then?
Depends. I mean, like, is it a woman that has the genitals and the additional genitals of the man, or is it a man who has the additional genitals of the woman? Because they wouldn't necessarily have breasts, right?
It depends on which.
Figure out which way that hermaphrodite direction goes.
You know what? And I hate getting into this part of it, but a hermaphrodite is almost a prime example of what Script's getting at here of what is the difference between male and female, because there's always a dominant in every situation. So yeah, they're never even true they thems at the end of the day, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not getting into that because I'm not a doctor. Last Millennial Script may be a doctor, but he's not that kind of a doctor. And speaking of, Last Millennial says, hey, Script, thanks for your advice yesterday on your stream. I was listening to some of that. It was really very interesting. How does a writer create a new character arc that isn't the same as the last one when creating a sequel to the OG movie? Example, Rey Skywalker. Well, that's a good question.
Well, the arc can be whatever direction you want it to go. I mean, the idea of the arc is the characters achieving a want that they have from the start. And if they've already got that want, you then explore from what you've learned from that character. Well, what would be the next stage that they would want after that? So in the first stage, Luke wanted to leave home, kind of, be a little bit closer to his father. And he achieved that. He became a great, he proved himself to the rest of the universe that he was a great pilot like his father and a cunning warrior and all that stuff. And now in the second movie, his want was, well, he's now got responsibilities as part of the rebellion. And he gets a message from Obi-Wan saying, you still haven't finished being a Jedi. You're going to go to this guy. And he's like, yeah, I want that. I want to be a legit Jedi. I just don't want to be a rebel that has a little bit of force power. I want to be a Jedi, which it goes back to the initial claim that he made in the first movie. And that's the journey that he takes on this one, and he fails at that. And then the third one is not just his wanting to be a Jedi, but also with the revelation of he wants to save his father. And so that's why he has those three distinct arcs, which encompass a larger arc of like what it means to be a Jedi and what it means to be a hero. So you got to kind of break down things that way and figure out, well, what's the next logical progression for a person? So if you do a romantic comedy and the first one is like, I want to fall in love. The second one would be like, okay, now that I fall in love, I want to get married. Or you already did get married and you say, well, I want to start a family. And then if you want to do a follow-up to that one, the other one would be like, okay, well, now I want to be a good parent. And so those are your three arcs that you could go through in a trilogy with a romantic comedy through line.
There you go. Fantastic advice. And then moving on from there.
Another one from the Last Millennial. Asks what exactly is Tony's arc in the second Iron Man?
Realizing that his father actually didn't resent or hate him, but sacrificed so much to make him the man he was. And that he actually was loved by his father. But it was also muddied up by a lot of Disney interventions.
Yeah, because they wouldn't let him do it exactly.
Yeah. The theme of it was like sins of the father are passed on to the children. But yeah, it was basically just a reconciliation of who he thought his father was versus what he actually was. And Tony coming to terms with that.
And who he is. Yeah. Well, it's true. It's kind of like the whole thing. Matthias Fredrickson says, has Tom seen Frank Marshall's last Indy 5 comment? No, now what did Frankie say? Now I gotta see. Sorry, I wish I saw this before.
Probably calling the audience misogynist or something.
Oh Lord.
Well, I don't know.
I've heard something like that come out of his mouth. Frank is a really diplomatic guy in that sense, as far as I know.
For the most part, yeah, he has said some dumb shit.
Yeah, but they're so infrequent to the point where you're like, this isn't even a pattern yet.
On my way to celebrate and mask up for different reasons. Is that it? I find myself in NYC tonight. I report my...
If he's going to mask up for different reasons, part of me thinks that's masking up to hide his face of embarrassment.
That's what I would think too, because there's no
he's talking about the pollution in New York because he's in New York.
Oh, yeah, because he's got all the soot.
or I guess whatever you want to call it, the smoke. Not, I mean, yeah, that's all I see on here. Unless it's something from earlier. No, because yeah, that's like 2-3 weeks ago. I guess that must be what you're referring to.
If not, then let us know in the chat.
But yeah. As far as I can tell, the people in California and Hollywood and all that business are still freaking out about COVID. Pinochet's helicopter tour says, what do you make of Bryan Singer making a documentary to explain and address all the allegations against him? Narcissism on a whole new level?
No.
You know what? And I don't know if Andre recalls all of this or not, but like, I'm going to bring this up now, and I'm not going to get too deep into it because I'm not sticking up for Bryan Singer, so do not take it in that sense. But we were going to do a video about Bryan Singer and the whole X-Men Bohemian Rhapsody business. But once we started digging into it, there was a lot of smoke and no fire at the end of the day. I think Singer wants to clear his name. Now, do I think he's innocent? I don't know. But I have not found anything that really stands up to some of the allegations that are out there about him. That's all I'm going to say on that. And that alone was enough for us to just kill the video because we're like, this is a lot of speculation, and the two main parties involved with the accusations were ex-boyfriends that were of age.
Yeah.
So that caused us to go like, you know what? This is just a lover's spat at the end of the day. So
yeah.
On that part, I don't know. Maybe that's what this whole documentary is going to be about. What do you guys think? I don't know.
I would say there's definitely no narcissism involved here, because that would be a matter of where things have been proven beyond any reasonable doubt whatsoever, and you still go on pretending your alternate reality, like your truth, like Amber Heard. If Amber Heard were to like go and put up a documentary about all the horrible stuff she suffered, that would be narcissism beyond compare. In this particular case, though, as Tom said, we were doing a video and we didn't do it in the end, because I'm not going to say that he's innocent. He's almost certainly not completely innocent, but he's also almost as certainly not completely guilty of everything he has been accused of. There is an area of gray in there, and I'm not talking about model or something like that, but there's like a gray area where he did some things that were absolutely not commendable in any way, shape, or form, whereas other things he has been accused of maybe aren't quite what he has been accused of.
Well,
so this is more a matter of him doing something to try to reframe and clear his name, which is a very human thing to do if you feel that you have been falsely accused. And I can see why he would feel that.
Right. And I mean, because part of this goes into, there was a lot of false stuff going on about him and not finishing Bohemian Rhapsody. We were told from no less than, I think, 2 people that sort of know him or know vicariously him personally. They said, oh no, he was there every day of shooting a Bohemian Rhapsody. We don't even know where that story's coming from, other than the media is trying to distance them. The media is helping the studio distance the film from him.
Yeah.
And one of the things that brought everything to a dead halt to us was this, which is weird, because the 2 people that wrote the expose that Ronan Farrow published finally, that got, everything that got him booted, supposedly in quotations, from Bohemian Rhapsody and everything else at the end of the day, they say exactly what we ran into as far as a brick wall and go, well, we're not sure if we should even do this, because that's exactly what it is. Because they were told by, I believe, 4 editors before they got to Ronan Farrow that they refused to publish it. They tried to present it under the idea that they're trying to keep it under wraps. But they even said that the reasons they were told were the exact reasons why we weren't going to go with it, because it's very circumstantial, because this is a lot of he said stuff from ex-boyfriends. None of this is the stuff that anybody has talked about before with, any of the other accusations. It's just that. And at the end of the day, we're just like, okay, so what do we do with this? And we're like, well, there's too much, like you said, gray area here where things are not jiving and one side of the story is not mixing with the other side of the story.
And what do we go on here? I don't know. So I think he's going to try and clear his name at the end of the day, but there's other accusations out there. I'm curious to hear how he addresses them, because there was a few that we just couldn't find enough evidence one way or the other to go on. That was the other problem.
Yeah. So if he wants to go out there and do a documentary to tell his side of the story, and I'm sure he's probably going to admit to quite a few things which are not commendable, let's say, but he may be like, okay, fine, I did this, but I did not do that. That's not
It's like when you get arrested, it's like, yeah, I committed the robbery, but I didn't commit the murder. I don't know who did that. He was dead when I got there, like that kind of a thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But again, yeah, we're not saying he's innocent, but we're also not saying he's guilty. We're just going to say that we don't know.
Yeah. Or he's definitely not guilty of everything. I think we can say that.
Too much circumstantial evidence at this time. Script actor, anything to say, or are you just going to let this one slide?
Nope, I think we can move on from that.
I figured as much. Mecca J says Amy Schumer claimed she dropped out of the Barbie movie because the original script didn't feel feminist and cool. Sure, she can tell herself that.
You know what? I think that's the best advertising thing for this movie.
You're not right.
Say more, Amy. Make people really want to see this movie now.
No shit.
Yeah. So basically, they were making a too good a movie for her. It wasn't an ideological mess, because that's what she wanted it to be. That's what it was lined up to be for a half a minute there. But then sensible voices prevailed, and they took it back in the direction it needed to go. And at that point, yeah, Amy Schumer didn't think it was ideological enough, but also the producers would be like, okay, now we have moved this project back from the brink. Why the hell is that woman still attached?
You know what, Andre? Maybe. Oh, go ahead. Finish. Sorry.
Yeah. So, I don't know who came to the decision that you're not going to be Barbie anymore. Was it Amy's decision herself? Was it the studios? I think they're going to hide behind the cover story that it was mutual. But I'm more inclined to believe that once the studio had moved the project away from the brink, they decided, okay, now let's just stay clear away from the ledge by going back to our original choice, which is the one who's currently playing Barbie right now.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I know you hate when we come to this point because you've already got enough stuff on your plate, but I think we may have found our hook for the Barbie video. We may have to dive back into some emails, Andre, and see if we can find.
That'll be like a fun nostalgia trip.
You know what I'm talking about?
Oh,
I think you know exactly where I'm coming from here.
Yeah, I had
trip down memory lane. Maybe we can find some nuggets that go, I don't think Amy's claim is quite accurate.
Yeah. What's Amy
claiming now? If the emails go far enough, that is.
Well, I have lots of practice digging through Amy's emails.
Yes, we do. Not the Amy, the other Amy. The one that y'all keep giving money by going to see Spider-Man.
Yeah, exactly. Not Schumer.
I hope, because she doesn't have anything to do with this version of Barbie, because that was originally at Sony. Duke Argento says, my left of center girlfriend loved Raiders when we recently saw it at a local theater. I showed her the DOD trailer and even thinks Fleabag seems insufferable. An under $60 million opening could be a reality. Yeah. And I don't think anybody is denying it as a possibility at this point. I'm surprised, but not at the same time.
I'm not surprised. I was surprised by the tracking figures that we got last week or something that were like, this seems way too high for Indiana Jones under any circumstance, and especially in light of the poor reviews, which have gone viral. I did not believe the previous numbers. These ones, a 60 million opening, that sounds about right. That sounds about right to me. So I do believe these numbers.
Yeah. And Script stepped away, so we're just going to keep moving along. Sig Tread is a new member. Thank you for that. We appreciate the support. Excuse me. Paulus Plain says, no, you can't make a Juno 2 for obvious reasons. Modern Times Elliot Page, formerly Ellen Page. Thank you, all me. Well, you just recast.
Well, actually, that's it. Would
Actually,
be
write it into the movie and make it brave and
times.
stunning. You write it in there, and then just make it brave and stunning. Don't even get me started on Elliot right now because.
Yeah, no, let's not get the stream shut down. So
no.
All we'll just say is very
see my Twitter for my thoughts on Elliot's insaneness.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say on that. Gabriel Knight says, I think we'll get to see George Lucas's personal experimental films he talked about making. Lucas said he doesn't intend publicly release, but curious if his estate will one day. Well, maybe that's part of what his museum is going to be for too.
Could be.
You never know. Because that's kind of like, some other, like Jerry Lewis, that reminds me of like the Day the Clown Cried. You can only go see that movie if you go, I think it's to which, I can't remember which library it is, where the Library of Congress or whatever it is, where they have it. And you just go in and you make your appointment to go see it. Now you can see it. But before you couldn't for many, many years. So maybe that's what George will do. You just go to his museum and every once in a while he'll be showing a collection of his short films and whatever he's working on now. Yeah. Mecha J says, do you see any other studio George could have sold Star Wars to instead of Disney? I'm sure he thought about, or he took an offer possibly from 20th Century Fox.
Maybe. But, I mean, the thing is that George Lucas hates the studio system.
He does,
Disney was so unlike the other studios that it was one of the only options for him. The other one being is that he'd probably have sold it to a company that would be just interested in getting into entertainment, but have no actual entertainment ties. Because again, George Lucas went independent and created his own studio because he hated the studio system. And then he became the very thing he hated and then tried to avoid being that for decades afterwards.
Yeah. And you're right. And script is spot on. He wanted Star Wars to be shepherded by Eisner's Disney, basically. He thought that would be the best place for it. But he did not have any clue, I don't think, of what they were about to do with this latest turn in Disney's.
He wasn't paying enough attention.
Yeah, I don't think so. Matthias Fredrickson says, see Screen Rant for Marshall on new Indy 5 MacGuffin. Oh boy, is this maybe what they were talking about? Well, let's see.
It just talks about time. That's it.
Oh, is that it?
Now that's what I saw on Screen Rant. I didn't see anything else that felt silly or.
Okay, let's see here. Frank. Okay, this must be it. Okay, how it's going to avoid Crystal Skull, something or other here. Producer Marshall teases the Dial of Destiny's mythological roots and the approach to science fiction in Mangold's Indiana Jones 5. It definitely works this time. Oh, Indiana Jones will avoid a Crystal Skull criticism. The Dial of Destiny is perfect for us because it's about time. Is this who's talking here? Is this?
That's Frank Marshall's.
Marshall. Okay, I got to do it in the right voice here. Hang on.
No, I don't think you do.
You don't? Oh,
no.
That's fun.
It's a nothing burger at this point. The way when I read it, I thought it's a nothing burger, but that's just me.
Okay, works for the plots. Took all the fun out of that one. It's a plot point that drives the story. Characters, we already know what the plot is. Back to the Future. I told you. What did I say?
Back to the Future.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So basically, it's just a complete vanilla statement, and it's the kind of thing that you have to say, but it's very, very easy to pick and make fun of when we already have the reviews. Yeah, we're not going to make the mistakes of Crystal Skull. Instead, we're going to find 10 new mistakes and do those instead. I mean, that's what he might as well have said, because that's what they did.
Pretty much. I mean, that you never know. Some of those attempts at new mistakes might be successes, but we will know for sure in 2.5, 3 weeks. There'll be no denial of it.
Yeah, something like that. Then we'll see it for ourselves, and well, some of us at least. I'm not going to make anyone see it. I'll take that bullet myself. So yeah. But let's move on here. Bill Galactica has gifted 5 Midnight's Edge memberships. Thank you.
And he's been a member for 2 years on top of it all. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Midwest Finest says, what's the appeal of Fleabag? I don't get it. She appeals to the Hollywood folks, right? Like, this goes to the whole idea of you know, they don't make movies for us and shows for us anymore. They're making them for themselves. Fleabag is one of those people.
Well, they never made it for us. They made
never
it for
have, but this
themselves,
is more
hoping that
so.
themselves was in line with us. That's how it worked. It's
Yeah.
It's
what
always
I mean
that
is she fills that role that they like, right? And that's why she's part of Star Wars, part of Bond, part of this. You know,
the thing is she's good at parties. She has a wit to her that not everybody likes, obviously, but it's there. And I think they're trying to reconcile that wit and incorporate it into franchises where it doesn't quite jive, and as a result, it's turning people off. And
they're trying to make her like the female James Gunn, and it ain't working.
Yeah, well, she's technically the British version of Diablo Cody. If you want to go back to Juno again, like that's basically it.
Yeah, because she's an actress, not a. They keep trying to make her more of a creative than an actress, but I don't think she's good at either. To be honest with you,
no, she's not.
So, I just find her completely obnoxious. And something else I find completely obnoxious is Aquaman. And we have a story on that, do we not, Andre? Are you kidding me? He just stepped away.
No, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, we do have that story. I'm running with. I wasn't thinking.
Quickly run us through us.
But let's do it real quick.
Well, you said it's, or if it's not in the thing, we can save it.
Yeah. No, we'll do it now. We still have 1,400 watching, so everyone, please smash that like, because as we have been covering extensively for the last couple of years, DC on film has been in a constant state of change, and this goes for all of their in-development movies. When Aquaman 2 first started out, that was, 2 regimes ago? And this is something that James Wan now has addressed, is the change in leadership at Warner and how that also has changed the movie. Now, this was a story that was brought to my attention from Bounding Into Comics, who says, James Wan discusses how deeply the reset of the DC universe affected Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. I've had to make adjustments all along the way. So obviously that wasn't just now, because remember, before before Saslaw, or before Gunn, there was Saslaw. And before Saslaw, there was Ansarnov and James Wan. They were making one movie, and then
before that was Kevin Tsujihara for the original Aquaman.
Exactly. But the ones that are the big ones here are the Sarnov and Hamada regimes, because they were making one movie when they had their girl boss direction planned for DC. Then Saslaw put an end to that by retooling the Flash and scrapping Supergirl and
at the end of the day, I think DeLuca and Abdi probably had more of an effect on Aquaman.
They did, because they were the ones that were Saslaw's lieutenants when he stepped in before Gunn came in permanent.
And who said that?
2 retoolings right there.
And who reported on that, ladies and gentlemen?
That would have been our very own Tom Connors.
That's right. And that's when shit changed. So that's where I have said nobody knows jack shit now but James Gunn. Because the moment he signed on, everything and anything they had pre-planned down up to this point, because up to that point, going off of the previous girl power version of Zaslav was like, oh, until we figure out who's going to run this, we need to reestablish this in some way that's, getting it out of this Snyderverse crap and all the stuff they were dealing with before. So at that point, they were looking at Flashpoint being a soft reboots of sorts. And that's where I was hearing the rumors of these people might be sticking around. These people might be going. They're going to reevaluate this going forward. The experiment of having Henry Cavill be in Black Adam, seeing how that played out. And I think that was all pretty much timed that way for various reasons that I'm not going to get into because it take forever to get into. But what is James saying that he had to deal with? Because they went through 3 rounds of reshoots so far on Aquaman 2?
Yeah, that we know of.
Like that.
Yeah. What he told the Hollywood Reporter, because that is the ultimate source for this article, was that he had to make adjustments constantly saying, "I've had to make adjustments all along the way. The DCU has been through lots of different versions." This is just what we were talking about. "And one of the things that was challenging about this film was keeping track of what was going on. Fortunately, the Aquaman universe is pretty far removed from the rest of the world." He continued, "We're going to many different underwater kingdoms that are not necessarily related to what's happening with the other movies and characters, so we're standalone in that respect. So I can just tell my story on its own without being affected too much. But at the same time, I have to be mindful of what's happening." And this, of course, is in reference to all the cameos and those few things that are going to bridge to the larger DC extended universe. Remember, this movie at one point in time was supposed to come out before The Flash and not after.
And I'm being told it still takes place before The Flash.
So it still takes place before The Flash. That's interesting.
The only thing that takes place after is whatever supposed end credit scene they come up with. And I've heard there's at least 3 or 4 different ones now.
Yeah.
We've already known about a couple of them being the Michael Keaton and Ben Affleck versions, while we have another version now post-Flash. So think about that for a minute.
Yeah. Well, they certainly went through, they filmed a bunch of stuff there. I mean, they filmed like cameos with both Affleck and with Keaton that were supposed to that basically filled the same function. So depending on what the planned future was, first it was Keaton, then it was Affleck, and then it all changed.
They had their bases covered, and then I think the other version was one that was completely devoid of any of that stuff, and then we have the other one now that is the newer version that is was shot with the Flash crap, and I'm not going to say exactly what character or who, but yeah, for those who know the spoilers, you can probably figure it out.
Yeah. That's basically just one filmmaker expressing his frustration with working for DC, that it's constantly changing direction, and he has to tweak his movie, at least parts of his movie, not the whole thing, because as I said, the bulk is isolated, but what isn't needs to be adjusted. So script, as the screenwriter, is this something that you would feel sympathy with, all this constant retooling when you don't know what's going on?
That would get him a job, but yeah script.
Yeah. No, I empathize with him. It's frustrating when you're in the midst of production and you're told you have to change things that could have a huge ripple effect on the cohesion of the film. But yeah, I get it. James Wan has really tried to make his Aquaman things its own thing and distance itself from everything else around it. And I think he did decent enough with the first one to I would say that was relatively successful, considering the fact that aside from Wonder Woman, it was the other movie that crossed $1 billion in gross worldwide, which is the first of its kind, essentially, especially for its debut character. The Flash, I don't think is going to get that because there's too many other cameos to try and guarantee that outcome. But I don't think it's going to work because, listen, they gave Aquaman a standalone movie for his introduction, and they're not doing that for the Flash, and the Flash is far more recognizable. That's a bad marketing strategy, in my opinion. But for James Wan, yeah, this is probably going to be his second and probably final entry in this with this character, and with maybe Warner Brothers and the DC film universe for quite some time. And I think he's just going to say anything he can to mitigate possible negative reception, which is definitely going to be a thing because a certain actress has not been replaced or removed from that. And I think it's smart for Warner Brothers not to throw good money after bad in that regard. So yeah, I think he's doing what he can to get ahead of the criticism and not necessarily deny or even accuse anyone of attacking him at that point. He's just saying, this is the troubles we've had. This is what we try to do as professionals. And hopefully that will keep him in good favor with audiences and other studios when he pitches them the next stuff he wants to work on.
Yeah, because I'm not even convinced that, I'm sure he didn't mention it in this and he probably never would, but I'm still not convinced that they didn't shoot alternate actresses for Amber Heard either, because I had heard they were.
So that might have even been part of this whole deal, because you got to remember there was a point they were still thinking of going forward with these people, but they knew they had to replace her. And they're like, well, if we're going to do it, let's do it now. And they had a couple possibilities from what we had heard. And the major one was taken off the table right away because she had kind of said that. And that's what's her face from Game of Thrones. I forget her name now.
I forgot her name right now too.
Yeah, but
you know, the dragon lady, Daenerys Targaryen.
Yeah. And so, we'll see how this movie turns out. But again, the other problem is I was hearing from the start and keep hearing from every different single iteration they've had of the different various screenings is that the biggest problem in the movie isn't Amber Heard. It's that the movie sucks from top to bottom. That it's just a bad movie, period. Like, nobody is saying it's a good movie. Not even those who usually try to play it up as a good movie.
It's a bad buddy cop movie.
That's what we're hearing from everybody.
Yeah.
Amelia Clark, thank you guys. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, fake Sarah Connor. All right. Well, let's get to the rest of these super chats and let's get out of here. What do you guys say?
Sounds like a plan. Good.
We got Mark. I think that's how would you say that, Andre? That's a strange.
That's
we got Marek.
No, that's Marek Chelko. That's
so Chelko. Yeah, I would have said something like that. So that's close.
Yeah, that seems
Marek Chelko.
Bosnian, Serbian, or Croatian.
Well, thank you. And that's an interesting name. I'm glad I didn't butcher it. Tennille says, stealing this from someone else in the chat, but Grump Tom is the best Tom. Sometimes. That's my no bullshit. I'm tired of the bullshit. Paulus Plain says, breaking news, B5 animated movie, J. Michael Straczynski, Babylon 5, The Road Home. Art looks good. Yeah, we've been talking a little bit about this here and there when we've heard news about it. Yeah, I've already heard of the home video release. So
yeah, and Marek clarifies he's from Slovakia.
Oh, so, cool.
Yes. So
wow,
sorry
all
about
over the
that,
world.
But in my defense, same general geographic location, but hey, that's calling in Norwegian as sweet. So,
yeah.
But thanks for the support either way.
Yes, indeed. And thank you all for listening. That supports us here at the channel. Hit that like button if you haven't already. We don't quite have 1,000 yet. We're getting close. So I think you guys can help us get to 1,000 at least if you haven't hit that like button yet.
Yes,
we'll make sure Sadie can get a snack
Body Cup comedies and for Sadie snacks. She needs that. She's still wearing that cone of shame, isn't she?
Yeah, sadly. She's got to wear it for a while now because she's had the actual surgery now.
Yeah.
But that went well. We're waiting to hear back yet on the final test to make sure everything was clear of any cancer. But yeah, so thanks again, everybody, for everybody who's helped out with that as well.
Indeed. And also thanks to Script Doctor, who's been with us this whole time. Script, what you got coming up?
I'm currently toiling away at some new posts for my Patreon. I'm also going to be doing some recordings with some special guests for some video release shows that'll be coming out in the following weeks. As I mentioned to you before the show, Andre, I went through a few hundred emails that I'm catching up on, so that's causing a little delay. But once I get through all of those, I'll be jumping back in with some more content for everyone there, and not just on my Patreon, but also on my YouTube channel. So much appreciated to everyone that has sent their support my way, and look forward to seeing what I can provide for you next.
Awesome.
And we did get the 1,000 likes. Thanks to everyone. So then Sadie gets her snack. So
as soon as she's up from her nap, I will do that. Her and the kitty are actually being really cute right now.
And everyone, also be sure to check out today's other guests. Of course, we have the regular Mr. Call Me Chato, but we were also joined by Valiant Renegade and Jonas Campbell of That Park Place. Both of whose links will be in the description before long, right alongside everyone else. And of course, the link where you can get Flip City Magazine.
Yeah.
And with that, it is time for some.
It is. Actually, but before we go, since they're looking so cute, I just sent you a picture. And we'll share it real quick. Since I've been promising updates on Sadie. Here we go. This is a fuzzy picture, but just to prove to you that they're not total enemies and they do get along from time to time. Here you go. Here's the doggo and
Kitty laying right next to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, since she's in the cone of shame. Poor dog. She's enjoying a nap right now with Kitty. So thank you so much, guys. And I appreciate that again. So let's get to those koalas in the rain.
Yes. Time for the koalas in the rain.
Koalas in the rain, koalas in the rain. No fucks given. Koala, koala. Koalas in the rain, koalas in the rain.
Thank you, Kathleen Morris, for being a member of Midnight's Edge.
Koalas in the rain.